Chapter 2282. Damn it. Yuan Tianjie cursed again. No one knew if he was cursing the book maniac, the painting king, or the heart king. Only at this moment did Yuan Tianjie have the time to look at his surroundings. But when he looked around, Yuan Tianjie was immediately stunned. He was dumbfounded. In front of him, where was the palace? This was a place even more miserable than a ruin. A wasteland worse than a dog kennel. As far as the eye could see, there were splashes of flesh and blood everywhere. The pungent smell of blood assailed his nostrils. Yuan Tianjie was stunned for a moment before he suddenly let out an unprecedentedly shrill scream. My palace. My empress. My son. My family. Yuan Tianjie roared angrily to the sky. Under the rapid search of a peak-stage Saint Realm expert's enormous divine sense, Yuan Tianjie instantly discovered a fact. That was, those people he cared about. Now, not a single one of them could be found. There was no reaction at all. This result could only indicate one possibility: they were all dead. All of them had been reduced to ashes by the explosion just now, and their souls had been destroyed. Yuan Tianjie felt cold all over. So Xin Wuhan's biggest blow to me was actually this. I once destroyed his family, but today, he's risking his life, dispersing his body and soul, just to let me have a taste of what it's like to have a family destroyed. Yuan Tianjie cursed angrily. In the past, when he killed someone's blood relatives, he only felt the satisfaction of his trick succeeding. Today, after losing all his blood relatives, he was actually so heartbroken. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, in the distance, countless figures were leaping over. Your Majesty, are you all right? They were the many guards outside the palace. This incident happened too unexpectedly, and the process was extremely short. Their cultivation was relatively ordinary, so they only rushed over now. As for the original guards in the imperial city, no matter how many there were, and no matter what cultivation they had, they were all dead at this moment. The entire palace was now like a mass grave. Under such an earth-shattering explosion, everyone within the imperial city, without exception, died a violent death. There were even many places outside that were affected by the explosion. Preliminary estimates showed that at least 500,000 people had died in this explosion, walking together in the spring. Boom boom boom, rumbling sounds continued to come from outside, and even the earth was shaking. It was the aftermath of the explosion just now. Within 1,000 miles of the Moyun Sky Imperial City, different degrees of earthquakes occurred at the same time. Almost all the steep mountains in the surroundings experienced landslides and slides at the same time. As far as the eye could see, the land within a radius of several thousand miles was filled with wailing. Yuan Tianjie took a deep breath, his eyes shooting out an unprecedented murderous aura. He waved his hand and shouted, "Let the Prime Minister come over. Begin encircling the rebels." At this point, he felt the anger in his heart, and it was getting more and more intense. Finally, he could not help but roar, "Kill, kill, kill them all, kill." Along with this thunderous roar, the shaking Moyun Sky Imperial City started, the tremors and the tremors. Deep sorrow finally appeared in Yuan Tianjie's eyes. Even if Yuan Tianjie was a heavenly demon, he could be cold-blooded and heartless to others, but how could he be truly heartless to his own family? If he was truly heartless, why would he spend so much effort to go against Chu Yang for his dead son? Now, the people he cared about the most were almost completely annihilated by the Heart King's explosion. In the past, it was only him, Yuan Tianjie, who annihilated the human race. Today, it was his, Yuan Tianjie's, clan that was annihilated. Karma was the cycle of reincarnation. Who said the heavens had no eyes? Who said the heavens had no proof? Kill. Yuan Tianjie roared fiercely again with red eyes. Mu Kanglan was in the study of the residents, seemingly drinking leisurely. But his brows were tightly knitted from beginning to end. He had a feeling that something bad was about to happen. This was the intuition of a high-level cultivator. This kind of strange premonition that only high-level cultivators had. This kind of special intuition told him that something terrible was about to happen or had already happened. This kind of mysterious intuition was often indescribable with words, but it was real and true. Unfortunately, this intuition was more like a kind of intuition. It was not something that could be controlled by humans. It was always the only thing that warned you, but you could never actively trigger it. Mu Kanglan was thinking about what exactly was wrong, or what could possibly be wrong. Suddenly, he felt an unusually strong sense of danger coming straight at him. This sense of danger was even more real than the previous intuition. Mu Kanglan was shocked. He knew that something very important must have happened. He immediately activated his cultivation at the peak of the saint level to protect his entire residence. Then, with a sway of his body, he was already standing on the roof. He was about to spread out his divine sense to find out where the enemy came from, to actually come to Mo Yunqian's capital to cause trouble. Suddenly, he felt an inexplicable tremor underground. Then, a terrifying aura that could destroy the world swept over from the direction of the imperial palace in the distance. Mu Kanglan, who had always been determined, was almost scared out of his wits at this moment. Once again, he exerted all his strength to resist this sudden and terrifying power. However, boom! The entire marshal's residence jumped up from the ground, at least 10 feet from the ground. Then, with a boom, it fell down and most of the houses were torn apart. There were screams everywhere in the residence. Fortunately, under Mu Kanglan's protection, there were no casualties. But even so, it still made Mu Kanglan extremely shocked. He couldn't help but be shocked. On his side, there were 2 peerless experts protecting him. Other than himself, there was also Shadow. Such a lineup was actually unable to resist this wave of tremors. One had to know that this was only the aftermath of the conflict. What exactly was the situation? How could there be such powerful experts fighting in Mo Yunqian's capital? If such a thing had happened, how could he not know about it? Also, the location of the conflict was from the direction of the Imperial Palace. The Imperial Palace. Mu Kanglan's heart suddenly jumped. The ominous feeling grew stronger and stronger. He was about to use his movement technique to rush to the Imperial Palace. But right at this moment, an extremely shrill sound of breaking air came from afar. Just by hearing this sound and the explosive sound, Mu Kanglan already knew that there were 2 experts on the other side. 2 super experts. Shadow flashed like a ghost, and appeared beside him. His face also revealed a sincere look of caution. Powerful enemies had appeared. Tonight, Mo Yunqian was destined to be turned upside down. Just as Shadow appeared beside Mu Kanglan and stood still, before he could even open his mouth to ask, the 2 figures on the other side had already appeared in front of Mu Kanglan. Mu Kanglan focused his eyes and looked at the people who had come. He was truly shocked and dumbfounded. Book King, Painting King, they were actually Yuan Tianjie's 2 personal guards. Also, the condition of these 2 people was not good. The Painting King and Painting King's faces were as pale as paper and covered in blood. However, the murderous aura that flowed from their bodies seemed to want to break through the sky and spread 3,000 li. What's the matter with you guys? What happened to the Imperial Palace? Mu Kanglan asked anxiously. How is His Majesty now? What kind of tragic situation could cause the 2 kings to be injured like this? Just now, there was an unimaginably terrifying attack from the direction of the Imperial Palace. At this moment, Yuan Tianjie's personal bodyguards appeared here. The 2 bodyguards with extremely high cultivation were even heavily injured. Everything pointed to the fact that a huge change had happened to Heavenly Emperor Black Cloud, Yuan Tianjie. Yuan Tianjie is an extraterrestrial demon. The Book King's sudden words were too unexpected. It made Mu Kanglan's head feel as if it was ruthlessly smashed by a big hammer 1,000 times. He couldn't help but feel dizzy. Even his body swayed a few times. How was this possible? How was this possible? Yuan Tianjie, Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun is an extraterrestrial demon. The Painting King spat out blood as he spoke. His eyes were filled with grief and indignation. Heart King, my elder brother and the rest are already finished. They all died in the hands of this demon Yuan Tianjie, General Mu. Take care of yourself. The Painting King said in surprise. We'll meet again someday. The Book King's tone was the same as the Painting King's. General Mu, you must be careful of the Demon King's evil hands. We'll meet again in the battle of slaying the demons. Before he finished speaking, The two figures had already soared into the sky. They swayed and turned into two rainbows, instantly disappearing without a trace. After a few words without rhyme or reason, the two immediately left. Mu Kanglan was the #1 person in Mo Yun Sky's military. If he was misled by Yuan Tianjie's words, it would inevitably lead to far-reaching consequences. Therefore, after the two escaped from the imperial palace, although they knew that time was tight, they still didn't leave directly. They rushed to Mu Kanglan's place to give him a warning. As long as Mu Kanglan knew this information, it didn't matter whether he believed it or not. Even if he only had a little bit of suspicion, that was enough. At this moment, Mu Kanglan still hadn't recovered from the shock of that sentence. He only felt that his mind was in a mess. He actually forgot to stop or say goodbye to the two people as they left. His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor was actually an extraterrestrial demon? General Mu, do you think this matter is true or false? Ying asked solemnly. I'm afraid this matter is 80% true. Mu Kanglan had always been a steady and resolute person. He quickly calmed down, and his eyes emitted a cold light. The first emperor and the empress each have their own inheritances. Only Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun appeared out of nowhere. No one knew his background beforehand. Although he had explained it afterward, and his resume was also impeccable. Such a peerless expert that suddenly appeared is where everyone's doubts lie. But at that time, His Majesty the Saint Monarch said there was no problem, so it ended just like that. Moreover, the calligraphy and painting kings, as the inheritors of the heavenly imperial palace, would not lie. It is even more impossible for them to lie about such a big matter. This matter is definitely true without a doubt. Mu Kanglan looked at the imperial palace that was rising like a mushroom cloud in the distance. His eyes were filled with deep worry. He muttered, Ying, you stay here and watch. I'm going to the imperial palace to take a look. The manuscript is gone. Today, I rushed back from father-in-law's house. I started writing at 7 in the evening. But one of my hands is not strong enough. It's just one chapter, so I've been writing until now. Late, sorry. Chapter 2283. Shadow was shocked. How about I go with you? We can take care of each other. Don't worry, it'll be fine, Mu Kanglan said indifferently. If we don't go, or if we go together, a battle will be unavoidable. If I go alone, it'll be fine. Furthermore, even though His Majesty's cultivation is much higher than mine, but from the commotion just now, it is obvious that the 7 kings were fighting against him together. Even if he has great merit, after killing 5 of my guards, I believe that he no longer has enough strength to kill me. Mu Kanglan took a deep breath. Although I am willing to believe the Book King's words, if I don't confirm it with my own eyes, I will feel uneasy. If this is true, then so what if Yuan Tianjie is really the sky demon? Shadow asked. Then I will fight him to the death. Mu Kanglan hesitated for a moment, then said through gritted teeth. Then I have to go even more. 2 people have a better chance than 1. Shadow insisted. Mu Kanglan was silent for a moment. No, I need you more here. If I die, I need you more. If I don't die, I need you more. I need you to live for me. I don't need you to die for me. Shadow was silent. After a long time, he said bitterly, All right. Then be careful, don't try to be brave. Mu Kanglan nodded and floated up. With a whoosh, he flew towards the palace like lightning. Yuan Tianjie was wearing a light yellow robe. His hands were behind his back as he walked through the ruins. Behind him were the officials who were rushing over. Among the officials, the Prime Minister was at the head of the group. At this moment, he was guarding Yuan Tianjie. Although Yuan Tianjie's figure was slightly stooped, the aura he was emitting at this moment was overflowing with killing intent. It was earth-shattering. As time passed, more and more people gathered, but Yuan Tianjie didn't say a word. He just walked through the ruins with large strides. Looking at the countless pieces of flesh scattered around, the people who were shaken to death, smashed to death, and turned into piles of minced meat. The majority of these pieces of flesh belonged to the palace maids, concubines, imperial granddaughters. No matter how beautiful and charming she was when she was alive, Dying under such an unexpected tragedy was simply too horrible to look at. They were all dripping with blood, bones, and flesh. Yuan Tianjie finally stopped moving. His eyes flashed with great reluctance at the flesh and blood scattered all over the palace. A trace of heartfelt pain appeared in the depths of his eyes, as well as a bit of faint disgust. He said indifferently, "The Heart King, Xin Wuhan, led the great protectors in an attempt to rebel, framing this emperor as a sky fiend, and besieging this emperor. After the battle, the 5 kings were killed by me on the spot, while the Book King and Painting King fled. Pass down my order. Immediately search for the 7th king's family and exterminate them. Search for the Painting and Calligraphy kings immediately and kill them at all costs. Anyone who kills either of them will be conferred the title of king and be rewarded with 100,000 purple crystal jade essence. Immediately pacify the military and the government. There must not be any chaos. The bandit suppression operation in the south will continue as normal. Eliminate the rebels as soon as possible and pacify Yun Tian, Prime Minister." Yuan Tianjie methodically arranged everything, his voice abnormally calm and steady. He suddenly turned to speak to the Prime Minister. "This official is here." The Prime Minister straightened his body. "Follow Zhen." Yuan Tianjie stepped forward, and the Prime Minister followed behind him. Although Yuan Tianjie didn't say anything else, he clearly only pointed at the Prime Minister, which was equivalent to ordering that no one else was allowed to follow. The wind suddenly blew, and Mu Kanglan landed. "Your Majesty, are you all right?" Mu Kanglan looked at the ruins of the palace in front of him with a face full of shock. He was dumbfounded and shocked. However, his eyes secretly flashed on Yuan Tianjie's body. Yuan Tianjie stopped and turned around. He looked at Mu Kanglan with a stupefied expression. He said indifferently, "Does Marshal Mu really not know what happened here?" Mu Kanglan said respectfully, "For such a disaster to occur in the imperial city, it is a great misfortune for the country. However, this matter came too suddenly and was impossible to guard against. This subject's residence was also completely destroyed by the shockwaves from the accident. This subject arranged for all the generals to gather and immediately rush over to await your Majesty's orders. But what exactly is going on?" Yuan Tianjie looked at him for a while and said in a low voice, "The 7 kings rebelled." After saying this, his eyes were still focused on Mu Kanglan's face without blinking, as if he wanted to see something on Mu Kanglan's face. Hearing this, Mu Kanglan opened his mouth in disbelief. Then, he seemed to react. "The 7 kings? The Heart King and the others? The 7 of them rebelled together?" Time seemed to have been shocked by this sudden news to the point that he felt a little lost and confused. Yuan Tianjie nodded heavily. Mu Kanglan immediately cursed, "These traitors! How dare they do such a heaven-defying thing? They deserve to die. They really deserve to die." He said with righteous indignation, "Your Majesty, this old official requests to take charge of the pursuit. We must capture all these traitors and bring them to justice." Yuan Tianjie said with great relief, "General Mu, this matter will naturally not be forgiven for these traitors. Hunting down traitors is everyone's responsibility. There is no need for General Mu to worry." "Yes. Your Majesty is mighty. Traitors and traitors will be condemned by everyone. They will die without a cause." Mu Kanglan said, "After this old official returns, I will immediately arrange for the capture. We must eliminate the traitors in the shortest time possible and pacify Cloud Sky." The Prime Minister slowly raised his head, his eyes becoming malicious as he looked at Mu Kanglan. At this moment, this Prime Minister who had always appeared weak suddenly became a ferocious beast, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Mu Kanglan's eyes narrowed as he looked at the Prime Minister and smiled slightly. Yuan Tianjie did not speak for a long time. After a long time, he took a deep breath and smiled. "Since General Mu has the intention of protecting the country, I am at ease. With General Mu's appearance, the rebellion will definitely be dissolved like ice." Mu Kanglan was filled with righteous indignation. He immediately got up and left the palace, cursing and swearing all the way back to his residence. While he was still on the way, he sent out orders for all military officers to gather at the general appointment platform. He left very quickly. Yuan Tianjie looked at Mu Kanglan's departing figure, a cold light flashing in his eyes. In an instant, the cold light was retracted and he regained his composure. But he did not say a word, walking out with the Prime Minister. At this moment, the palace was already in ruins. Even a dog would find it hard to find a place to stay, let alone Lord Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun. So Yuan Tianjie temporarily settled down in the palace. Although the degree of damage here was not small, because it was relatively far away, it was preserved quite a bit. Your Majesty, that Mu Kanglan's attitude is not right, the Prime Minister said in a low voice. When he first requested to capture the enemy, Your Majesty had already tactfully expressed that he did not need to do anything. But he said that he would immediately make arrangements after returning. This kind of action is clearly ignoring the monarch and acting arbitrarily. This is not a good omen. Yuan Tianjie's face darkened as he said indifferently, when Mu Kanglan returns this time, Mo Yun Tian is destined to be divided. He has already made his decision. Also, he believes in my identity as a heavenly demon. It seems that after the painting and calligraphy kings escaped from here, they did not immediately flee. Instead, they went to him and told him about this emperor's true identity. Although I don't know how much they said, they must have said the main points. This emperor is an extraterrestrial heavenly demon. Your Majesty, since that is the case, why didn't you directly capture that old thief? You might as well cut off all future troubles. The Prime Minister narrowed his eyes and asked. As soon as he said that, he saw Yuan Tianjie's originally calm face turn pale. Then, he spat out a mouthful of black blood, his body swaying. Just now, he was still calm and composed, as if he was completely fine. But now, he had already disappeared without a trace. Your Majesty. The Prime Minister was shocked. Yuan Tianjie panted a few times. Do you think I don't want to capture and kill that Mu Kanglan? Indeed, right now, I am heavily injured and almost cannot suppress my injuries. If I rashly fight with Mu Kanglan now, regardless of the final outcome, my internal injuries will definitely worsen. I'm afraid that I won't be able to recover even after 100 years. Moreover, my million-year plan must be completed in these few years. How can I suffer such heavy injuries? It will affect the overall situation. Speaking up to here, Yuan Tianjie's eyes revealed an extremely strong hatred. The painting and heart kings, those bastards, actually discovered the truth at such a crucial time and started a rebellion. They really deserve to die. Mu Kanglan will definitely make a big move this time. Prime Minister, you will be in charge of handling this matter. The Prime Minister's eyes flashed and a dense black aura came out of them. His expression did not change as he said, "Tonight, this old official will personally capture and kill Mu Kanglan. I will vent my anger for Your Majesty." Yuan Tianjie coughed a few times and said, "You must plan it well and kill him in one strike." The Prime Minister slowly nodded his head. When Mu Kanglan hurried back to his residence, all the generals had already gathered at the general appointment stage. Dong dong dong. On the general appointment stage, the dull sound of drums continuously sounded. Every sound was like the heavy hammer of an ancient battlefield, heavily pounding on everyone's heart. Chapter 2284. Is everyone here? Mu Kanglan's expression was abnormal. Strict. Yes. Seal the door. Get in position. Mu Kanglan shouted. Contrary to his usual calmness, there was a hint of urgency in his voice. Several saints released their auras at the same time, completely sealing off this space. Unless an outsider's strength was strong enough to break through the limit of this seal, it was absolutely impossible to know what was happening in this space. Everyone was bewildered. What was this situation? Why was there a need to make such a big scene? Originally, everyone was suspicious because of the accident that happened not long ago. Now that they saw the usually calm Mu Kanglan lose his composure, they naturally understood what was going on. Mu Kanglan quickly walked down from the stage with his hands behind his back. His gaze was like a knife, sweeping across the faces of all the generals. The great change in the imperial city this time, the rebellion of the 7 kings, I'm sure everyone already knows. Mu Kanglan said in a low voice. Everyone nodded. Everyone present was well informed. How could they not have received news of such an earth-shattering event happening in the imperial city? Their hearts were already in turmoil. 7 kings, those who didn't know might ask, who are the 7 kings? Who are the 7 kings? However, all those who knew the inside story would want to ask in astonishment, the 7 kings are the 7 stars protectors of His Majesty the Sky Emperor. They are practically the symbol of Mo Yuntian's fortune. How could they rebel? Betray him? There was no reason, something that couldn't happen. These people had been loyal to Mo Yuntian for millions of years. How could they rebel together at this time? It was so sudden and without any warning. What exactly had happened? But everyone knew that this matter was extremely sensitive, especially when the 7 Kings Rebellion was personally condemned by Mo Yuntian, Yuan Tianjie. There was absolutely no possibility of a mistake. So even if there were thousands of doubts, no one dared to ask. When they heard Mu Kanglan's question, they all stretched their necks and pricked up their ears to listen in silence. The reason why the 7 kings rebelled is because Mu Kanglan's stern gaze was mixed with endless humiliation. His voice was extremely low as he said heavily, "It is because they discovered that the heavenly emperor we have served for more than 1,000,000 years, the heavenly emperor of Ink Cloud Sky, Yuan Tianming, is actually an extraterrestrial demon." What? How is this possible? That's impossible, right? Skyfiend. Lord Celestial Emperor is an extraterrestrial demon? This is really unbelievable. Below, there was an uproar. Countless voices of doubt and surprise rose and fell one after another. Originally, this was an important military area. Moreover, everyone was a high-ranking military officer. They had their own military qualities and understood the principle of strict military discipline. No matter what, such a situation should not have happened. However, this sudden news really caused everyone's minds to be in chaos. He couldn't control himself at all. Don't tell me that everyone still doesn't know what kind of people the 7 kings are. Mu Kanglan's face was sorrowful as he slowly explained. This matter was of great importance. He had to analyze it bit by bit. Otherwise, if there was even the slightest bit of doubt in his own troops, there was the possibility of being infiltrated by the enemy. At this moment, Mo Yuntian couldn't bear any more accidents. He had to completely eliminate all possibilities. When the explanation was finally finished, everyone looked at each other. Although they knew that the truth was unquestionable, they still hoped that this was just a joke, a misunderstanding, or even a nightmare. At the same time, a strong sense of grief and humiliation quickly grew. The unrealistic feeling of a dream filled everyone's hearts. The 7 kings have already confirmed that 5 people have sacrificed their lives on the spot in order to slay the demon. Mu Kanglan said solemnly, "It's a pity that the heavenly demon's power is unfathomable. The 7 kings gave it their all, but they were still unable to succeed. Everyone, Ink Cloud Sky's future is now on the shoulders of all of us. If even we can't hold on, perhaps, then, Ink Cloud Sky will become the second Purple Cloud Sky." Mu Kanglan sighed. However, what kind of heroes are the people of Purple Cloud Sky? The heavenly emperor of Purple Cloud, Zi Hao, fought a bloody battle until the last soldier, never giving up. The tens of millions of soldiers of Purple Cloud Sky all died on the battlefield. Every one of them was an unyielding heroic spirit. They were all undying heroic spirits. Even though their souls don't exist now, their names will be immortalized for eternity. But what about us? Mu Kanglan's voice, which was already unusually low, became even more hoarse. If we die here today, we are just a bunch of fools from head to toe, who are not worthy of pity, sympathy, or even admiration and praise. When future generations talk about us, if they have good intentions, they will say that they are just a bunch of ignorant people who have been deceived. And the straightforward ones will only say that we are just a bunch of fools. As if we have no brains at all. We worked for the heavenly demon for 1,000,000 years, and were killed by the heavenly demon. Not only did we give our lives to the heavenly demon, but we also gave the entire Ink Cloud Sky to the heavenly demon for nothing. Even though they died foolishly, they deserved to die. It's not worth feeling pity. Mu Kanglan's hair and beard flew. Are you all willing to accept this ending? We are not willing. All the generals shouted in unison. They all felt their blood boiling. As long as they thought of the possible consequences, everyone was so angry that they couldn't control themselves. We definitely can't accept such an ending. Even if we die, we will kill the heavenly demon and the heavenly demon. Even if we die, we will wash away our humiliation. Even if our souls die, we will protect ink cloud sky. Even if our souls die, and we are beyond redemption, we will completely kill the heavenly demon and the heavenly demon. We will wash away the humiliation of being deceived for 1,000,000 years. General Mu, give the order. Mu Kanglan slapped the table and stood up. He shouted, "That's right. We are not willing to accept such a humiliating ending. Even if we die, we will kill the heavenly demon and the heavenly demon. No matter what, we will protect our homeland ink cloud sky. We were once foolish. We were once deceived by someone. But in the end, we are still Mo Yuntian's great men. Yes, yes, yes." Everyone shouted. We are still the people of Heaven Imperial Court. We are still the natural protectors of this world. Mu Kanglan's eyes were like lightning. Who will follow me to fight the heavenly demon? Who will follow me to restore ink cloud sky? Who will fight side by side with me? Who will follow me to take revenge and wash away our humiliation? Me. 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 Soldiers, listen up. Mu Kanglan suddenly stood up. His posture was tall and straight, like a lofty mountain, majestic and unshakable. He was no longer in a daze. He reappeared the supreme demeanor of ink cloud sky's General Mu, the god of war. Yes. Immediately. Prepare for battle. Immediately. Organize the army and withdraw from the imperial capital. Today, announce to the world that we will kill the heavenly demon and defend the Tao. Immediately, we will fight the heavenly demon and the heavenly demon to the death. Yes. Kill the heavenly demon and defend the Tao. We will fight the heavenly demon and the heavenly demon to the death. Move. All the troops, gather outside the south gate in the evening. Yes. With a whoosh, the generals hurriedly dispersed. Mu Kanglan watched the generals leave like the wind. His eyes were heavy again. Shadow. Yes. I want to ask you for a favor. Send my family and Meng Wu Ya's family out of the city as soon as possible, the faster the better. Mu Kanglan said in a low voice. What about you, General Mu? I want to stay here. Mu Kanglan said indifferently. The Prime Minister has been standing with Yuan Tianjie since the beginning. Their positions are clear and they know what to do. It's just that they can't make a move. Since we have already started to move, they will definitely start to move as well. I want to stay here and restrain the Prime Minister. It's too dangerous to do that. If the other party wants to make a move, they must be confident. Shadow was shocked. Don't worry, I won't die. Mu Kanglan said indifferently. As long as Yuan Tianjie doesn't die, I will keep this old life and fight him to the death. Unless Yuan Tianjie dies, this humiliation will never be washed away. If I die before he does, Mu Kanglan laughed bitterly and said word by word, I really won't die in peace. Hearing this, Shadow was relieved. Since Mu Kanglan said so, then he definitely won't die. When one's cultivation reached Mu Kanglan's level and he was in an environment he was familiar with, unless he decided to fight to the death, as long as he wanted to leave, even Yuan Tianjie would not be able to stop him. If I don't stay and use myself as bait, the Prime Minister will most likely make a move on the others, and they definitely won't be able to stop him. Mu Kanglan snorted. But with me here, he definitely won't and won't dare to make a move on others, because he's afraid of me being the Oriole. Heavenly demons and demons will always place their own safety as their number one priority. Shadow agreed and turned to leave. Mu Kanglan's heart was already half at ease when he saw his family gather together and fly out silently under Ying's lead. There were a few other saint experts in this group. With Shadow's protection, and him staying here to restrain the enemy's main force, this trip was foolproof. Mu Kanglan's robes fluttered as he stood on the roof and let out a long howl. The howl came out of nowhere and soared into the sky. In an instant, the entire imperial city could hear Marshal Mu Kanglan's howl. The howl meant to urge his own people to leave quickly. It meant to inform the enemy, but tell the Prime Minister. Tell that demon Yuan Tianjie. I'm still here. I, Mu Kang Lan, am still here. If I don't move, let's see who dares to move. Chapter 2285. Mu Kang Lan's surging battle intent, which had been dormant for hundreds of thousands of years, erupted like a raging wildfire. In fact, it was not just battle intent. In an instant, his soul, cultivation, and killing intent were all set ablaze. Thirst for battle. Prime Minister, are you still not coming? It was already evening. The entire imperial city was silent and extremely quiet. It was as if nothing had happened. However, silence did not equate to stability or safety. The quiet atmosphere was a heavy and oppressive aura. This aura enveloped the entire city. Such a powerful aura. Mu Kang Lan was standing on the roof with his hands behind his back. In the courtyard, there was a man in black. This man was Mu Kang Lan's personal guard. Everyone had left. All the military experts had left the city. The only one left was the one who had accompanied Mu Kang Lan through life and death, the great guard who had never been separated from him. This team of 120 people had died one after another in this million-year battle. In the end, only this person was left. However, this person was a top expert who had been through countless battles. Fighting, war, to them, was just a common occurrence. At this moment, even though they were about to face the largest and most tragic battle in Mo Yunqian's history, their faces were calm and unperturbed. Wherever Commander Mu is, we will be there. Between them, there was no need to use words to communicate. They only needed one look and one action to understand each other. Tonight, blood will dye the imperial city red. Mu Kang Lan said faintly. He remained silent, as if he was unmoved. However, the look in his eyes suddenly became abnormally intense. They are already here. Mu Kang Lan smiled faintly. Mu Kang Lan had just finished speaking when he heard a loud cry from afar. A clear voice said, "Xiao Xiao Kang Lan waves in the sky. Yi Yi's cold wind blows the falling moon. Two heroes stand side by side on the dark clouds. Loyal heart and iron bones cast the heavenly palace. Mu Kang Lan, I am here." That was the voice of Prime Minister Yi Luoyu. This was originally a poem that Yuan Tianjie improvised back then. He even embedded the names of Mu Kang Lan and Yi Luoyu into it. It could be said to be the highest praise for the two of them. In fact, before today, this poem was a symbol of glory for Mu Kang Lan. But at this moment, when Mu Kang Lan heard this poem again, he instantly felt as if his insides were burning. An unprecedented feeling of humiliation filled his heart. "Yi Luoyu, since you're here, you might as well come out." Mu Kang Lan's eyes flashed as he shouted in a deep voice. "He!" A clear and elegant laughter rang out. Suddenly, a green robe appeared in the distant sky. His green robe fluttered in the wind, as if he had come with the wind and the moon, looking elegant and unrestrained. The moment Yi Luoyu saw this green robe, her figure had already landed on a roof 100 feet away. She looked at Mu Kang Lan from afar. Her stooped body and white hair swayed gently in the wind. Her face was full of wrinkles, but a pair of bright eyes sparkled as she looked at Mu Kang Lan. "Mu Kang Lan, you're old. I'm old too." Yi Luoyu sighed softly. "Why do we have to rebel like this before we die? Destroy a lifetime's reputation and leave behind countless helplessness." Mu Kang Lan's gaze was like a knife. "Yi Luoyu, I believe this is the last time I'll call you Yi Luoyu. Because I want to ask you, what is your real name?" Yi Luoyu narrowed her eyes and smiled. "Mu Kang Lan, it seems that you've really become muddle-headed. You already know my name. It's so catchy, but you're wasting time asking. Muddle-headed, muddle-headed. Hee. Mu Kang Lan stared at her with a sharp gaze. "Since that's the case, there's nothing to say between us. Do it." Yi Luoyu suddenly laughed loudly. "Mu Kang Lan, you're a traitor now. As a traitor, you can still be so righteous." Mu Kang Lan said coldly, "Traitor? As an extraterritorial demon, how dare you be so arrogant in the heavenly imperial court?" Yi Luoyu laughed heartily. "Otherworldly demon? You're joking." Mu Kang Lan said coldly, "Whether I'm joking or not, we both know. Why deceive ourselves? Ha 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 ha. Yi Luoyu laughed heartily, rocking back and forth. His figure and face suddenly changed strangely in this laughter. His head full of white hair suddenly turned as black as ink, and his wrinkled old face became as smooth as jade in an instant. The wind blew, and his black hair fluttered. A jade ribbon tied his hair, making him look handsome and extraordinary. His nose was like a hanging gallbladder, his eyes like bright stars, his face as white as jade, and he was as handsome as a tree in the wind. He turned from an old man into an elegant man in the blink of an eye. With a loud laugh, he straightened his waist and his entire body suddenly stood upright on the roof. His entire body slowly floated into the air. The wind was biting cold. His beard and hair fluttered, and his clothes fluttered. An abnormally powerful and biting cold aura suddenly filled the air. Yi Luoyu had her hands behind her back as she stared intently at Mu Kanglan's ferocious attacks. There was no longer any emotion in her eyes, but her elegant voice continued to ring out, "Mu Kanglan, I never imagined that after 1,000,000 years of friendship, we would still have to fight in the end." Mu Kanglan lowered his head and looked longingly at the residence he had lived in for 1,000,000 years. He said softly, "People of different paths cannot work together." After speaking, he suddenly looked up. He stared straight at Yi Luoyu, and his voice was like metal clashing. "It is everyone's responsibility to slaughter the otherworldly demons and Evilders." "Who is the otherworldly demon?" Yi Luoyu laughed in the air. Her laughter rumbled and covered the sky. "You, Mu Kanglan, are the otherworldly demon." Mu Kanglan sneered disdainfully. Mu Kanglan is a spy from the otherworldly demons who infiltrated Mo Yuntian. He concealed his identity, and for 1,000,000 years, he used all kinds of schemes and methods to frame countless loyal people and finally climbed to a high position. Now, the otherworldly demon army is about to invade. You, Mu Kanglan, as the spy, naturally have to cooperate and fabricate all kinds of lies to confuse the people, intending to start a rebellion and commit treason. Today, I am under the orders of His Majesty the Celestial Emperor to kill this traitor. Everyone has the right to kill a traitor. At this moment, Yi Luoyu was as elegant as jade. She stood in the air and spoke with assurance. Her voice was clear and spread in all directions. Mu Kanglan only sneered at this. He really did not want to waste any more time on such words that distorted the truth. If he could use force, why would he need to fight? In the end, wouldn't he have to use his fists to speak? Attack! At Yi Luoyu's shout, the wind whistled and hundreds of white-robed people suddenly appeared. The first 3 people had just appeared and turned into 3 long rainbows, charging at Mu Kanglan. Kill! Below them, the Grand Guard was like a black whirlwind that transformed into a neat black rainbow that intercepted the enemies that were charging from all directions. Without a single word, they directly launched a killing blow upon coming face to face. This gave people the illusion that the white-robed people charging over were the ones being attacked. However, this single person was the one who was attacking. This person's attack pattern was simply crazy. The moment they attacked together, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, white, and black appeared in the air. It was really like a colorful rainbow, following which, streams of blood spurted out with a pu-pu sound. The people charging over on Yi Luoyu's side were all shouting and shouting to kill. Clearly, they were strengthening their momentum. However, the people on Mu Kanglan's side did not make any sound. It was as if momentum, and power were meaningless to them. For a moment, they flew everywhere, constantly changing positions. They were really skilled at changing their positions. Although they were at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers, they actually created countless after-images in the air. At a glance, they seemed to have more people than Yi Luoyu's side. Countless weapons had been smashed into smithereens the moment they clash. At this level, there were very few divine weapons that could withstand a strike from them with all their cultivation bases. It was just a face-off, but all the buildings in the marshal's residence collapsed without exception. Even the foundations were shaken out of the ground and scattered in the air. One of the black-robed men remained silent. His figure that was originally moving at high speed suddenly stopped. With a wave of his hands, All the broken walls in the air suddenly gathered in his hands as if they had a life of their own. With a casual rub, it turned into a huge stick that was several tens of feet long and several tens of feet thick. Just like that, it covered the head and the face, and without any explanation, it smashed down with the stick. His opponent, a white-clothed man, received the blow with both of his palms. With a hong sound, the white-clothed man staggered back. The black-clothed man also let out a muffled groan. However, he continued to move forward. When he arrived in the sky, the stick that had been shattered by the blow just now condensed in his hand again. Then, he ruthlessly smashed down with the stick again. Yi Luoyu sneered slightly, looking at the fierce battle in the air. Her green robe was still spotless, her face like jade, still calm. Mu Kanglan stood in the air, staring at Yi Luoyu like a hawk. He did not care about the battle around him. Both of them knew that the other was their true mortal enemy. As long as he was slightly distracted, half of his troops would be destroyed under the other's attack. Keeping an eye on his biggest enemy was equivalent to protecting his subordinates. Mu Kanglan, I still don't understand one thing. Yi Luoyu looked at the battle, her voice exceptionally soft as if she was discussing something with an old friend. Why don't you let these people participate in the battle? No matter what the battle is, no one outside the military is allowed to participate. What is this logic? But now I finally understand. Chapter 2286. Yi Luoyu shook her head with a wry smile. I see. Look at the people fighting. On the Xing family's side, there are also top-notch experts in my mansion. Even though the majority of them are weaker than your guards, my 10 commanders are definitely at the same level as them. In fact, they might even be stronger than them. But right now, with those 10 commanders as the leaders, they are leading 300 subordinates. Yet, they are being held back by you alone. They are even at a disadvantage for a short period of time. Mu Kanglan sneered. Oh, I finally understand. The strength that they gain through bitter cultivation and constant sparring, and the strength that the army gains through constant killing on the battlefield, are completely different. Yi Luoyu sighed deeply. The army's experts, their battle awareness, experience, and fearlessness, as well as their almost instinctive dodging movements, are all abilities that my subordinates do not have. Your people have already formed an instinct to avoid life and death injuries. In the process of battle, they do not need to think at all. They can naturally dodge and counterattack. But for my people, they need to use experience, martial arts, and movement techniques to think. This is the difference. A huge difference. This difference is really too huge. Yi Luoyu raised her head gracefully and looked at Mu Kanglan. So you have already thought of today's battle 1,000,000 years ago. Mu Kanglan, you are indeed a scheming and far-sighted person. The extraterrestrial demons really didn't choose the wrong person to be their spy. Mu Kanglan smiled faintly and was full of mockery. As for who is the real spy of the extraterrestrial demons, this old man does not care to argue with you. However, what you said earlier is completely wrong, a complete misjudgment. This old man is not so scheming to be able to predict today's changes, but this old man is a soldier. War belongs only to soldiers. It does not belong to the pugilistic world, and it does not belong to anyone else. Before we soldiers are all dead, it will only be our shame if other people participate in the war. Protecting our country and our territory is the duty of us soldiers. If we still have to rely on these Jianghu experts to fight in the war, then what's the use of us soldiers? Mu Kanglan was proud but also a little sad. Luoyu, this is the pride of a soldier. People like you will never understand. In normal times, some of us can be ruffians in the army, and some of us can also break the law. Some of us can even go to jail and be beheaded. But as long as the war comes, the first to rush up will definitely be us. We can only be us. Only us. Even if the person we chose to be loyal to is wrong, the Mo Yuntian we chose to protect is not wrong. We've been in the army since we were young. We've been through 1,000,000 years. Who knows how many times we've changed? How many people have died? How many brothers have been buried in the sand? Only after countless trials and tribulations did we finally condense the soul of the army we have today. Now, these undefeatable warriors who have survived tens of thousands of battles are gathered. We were originally powerful, but in the end, the source came from the higher-up. All of our efforts have turned into a joke. What a joke! Mu Kanglan chuckled, his voice sorrowful. According to Luo Yu, you are a heavenly demon. That's why you don't understand. People like us don't have as many schemes as you. From the beginning to the end, we only have perseverance and pride. This pride belongs to the army. No one can replace it. Mu Kanglan pointed at the battlefield proudly. You have far more people under you than us, and you have more experts of the same level. I only have 2 people on my side. But do you dare to make a bet with me? Let's bet on who will win in the end. I don't dare. Yi Luo Yu shook her head honestly and smiled. Because I can see that if I don't have any other tricks up my sleeve, the final winner of today's battle will definitely be your great guard. Even if only one of them is breathing in the end, everyone on my side will have already become corpses. Yi Luo Yu said. These words were said with great sincerity. Ha 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 ha. Mu Kanglan laughed proudly and sorrowfully. Heavenly demon clown, how can you know where the soul of my heaven palace is? How can you know the roots of my heaven palace? How can you know the pride of my heaven palace? Even if we have internal strife, even if we kill each other, even if we are dissatisfied with reality, but, as long as we are facing you, every one of us is a warrior. We are all proud. Our pride, our roots, our souls, our heaven palace, in our hearts. Heaven palace in our hearts. Mu Kanglan roared loudly. I will not be defeated. At this point in the battle, some of the great guard were already riddled with injuries, but at this moment, they replied in unison. This was the first time they had spoken since the battle started. There were only 3 words. Only one person. That aura was majestic and awe-inspiring. It really was like 1,000,000 people charging in unison, unstoppable. Mu Kanglan was satisfied and laughed heartily. Yi Luo Yu, do you understand? Do you know that my army has been on the battlefield for 27 million years? In every battle, no matter who the enemy is, the imaginary enemy in our hearts is actually the heavenly demons. It's you bastards. Mu Kanglan reached out and pointed at Yi Luo Yu, his voice like a thunderclap. Yi Luo Yu was still not angry. She just stared at Mu Kanglan and suddenly laughed. Mu Kanglan, I know you are fighting for time. So am I. But I have already fought for the time I need, but you haven't, have you? She suddenly flew into the air, her green robes fluttering. She shouted softly, kill. With a loud rumble, tens of thousands of troops suddenly charged over from all directions. The tide of people surged, and it was unknown how many more there were. There seemed to be no end. Yi Luoyue's figure gracefully flew towards Mu Kanglan. She spread her hands and 10 streaks of silver light suddenly appeared. They seemed to have a life of their own as they circled around and flew towards Mu Kanglan. Every ray of silver light contained a tyrannical power that could almost destroy the heavens and earth. Mu Kanglan, just wait and see. Just wait and see. Just wait and see. Just wait and see your great guards all die here. Yi Luoyu laughed and then lowered her voice. The ones charging over now are all your dark cloud heaven's native compatriots. Ha ha ha, compatriots, you guys always like to use this word. But I wonder if your butcher's knife can still cut down your compatriots who don't know the truth. Ha ha ha. Heavenly demons and demons, despicable and shameless. Mu Kanglan rose to meet them. His burly body swept through the air, and a rainbow suddenly appeared in his hand. His face was even colder. In the face of right and wrong, anyone who stands against us is our enemy. Killing them is their rightful end. He sneered. Yi Luoyu, if you want to see me in a dilemma, then you have miscalculated. Yi Luoyu laughed loudly. Come, come, come. For 1,000,000 years, we have been fighting side by side in dark cloud heaven, but we still haven't decided who is better. Let's decide it today. As they spoke, the 2 people's energy collided in the air. All of a sudden, a series of strange cracks appeared on the ground with crackling sounds. In the air, Waves of black light flashed randomly. That was because the energy collided, and a large space crack appeared in the air. On the ground and in the air, the two sides that were fighting seemed to have encountered a hurricane, and were swaying left and right. Yi Luo Yu! Mu Kanglan shouted, his beard and halberd spread. Take out your heavenly demon secret technique. You are still not my match with this move. Even in such an intense fight, Yi Luo Yu still maintained her elegance and smiled politely. I'm afraid that may not be the case. In the air, the two people rolled and rolled into a ball, and were locked in a fierce fight. On the ground, the senior guard's situation was becoming more and more dangerous. There were more and more enemies, and he could no longer move as freely as before. He could be drowned in the crowd at any time. Since these people were chosen by Yi Luo Yu to deal with Mu Kanglan, how could there be people with low cultivation? Any one of them was a top expert. Mu Kanglan looked at them one by one, and his heart was burning with anxiety. But he had no other way now. Because Yi Luo Yu's powerful cultivation was enough to tie him down. He really wanted to, but he was powerless and could do nothing. As the battle was in a stalemate, the sky slowly darkened. The fighting here was also becoming more and more intense. Finally, dust rose in the city, as if there were thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers moving together. From many different positions, they rolled towards the south gate. Without a doubt, that was the signal that the orders of the generals had been sufficiently carried out, and the officers of all levels had started to move. This was because this matter needed to be secretly linked together. Although it seemed a little late, to be able to activate it all in such a short period of time was enough to prove that Mu Kanglan's position in the military was unshakable, and the meticulous Yi Luo Yu obviously also noticed this. She frowned and tilted her head thoughtfully. Mu Kanglan knew a lot about this old colleague of his who had been a subject of the same palace for millions of years. He immediately shouted, "Guards!" Below, the senior guard, who was riddled with scars, replied at the same time, "Here." Yi Luo Yu obviously had a premonition of a possible change. Almost at the same time, she warned loudly, "Stop them. Drip blood to attack." But almost at the same time, it was still not the same time. A difference of a millimeter could accomplish many things. Yi Luo Yu's warning was too late. Chapter 2287. Yi Luo Yu knew that something was amiss. She stopped fighting Mu Kanglan and flew away. She fell like a whirlwind. Her target was moving separately. Clearly, she was trying to create some kind of formation. Clearly, the key had shifted to that person. However, Mu Kanglan's lips curled into a mysterious smile. He moved like a shadow and chased after Yi Luo Yu. He landed on the ground and suddenly roared, "Heavenly demon, give me your life." His palms danced like a whirlwind. Suddenly, from the sky, from the ground, and from the air, countless sharp blades appeared silently. Each blade was mixed with an unusually sharp sonic boom. They cut open spatial cracks in the void and whistled over with unparalleled momentum. Behind each saber, there seemed to be a flame accompanying it. That was because the speed of the blade itself was simply too fast. The intense friction caused by the extreme speed had ignited the surrounding air. This was the only move that Mu Kanglan had revealed to others that made him famous, Void Blade Soul. Whenever this move was used in battle, it would cause the deaths of at least tens of thousands of people every time it was used. It was unparalleled in power, and its power was even more intense. Yi Luo Yu suddenly felt that she was being attacked by no less than hundreds of thousands of weapons at the same time. Even though her cultivation was at the divine realm, she did not dare to rashly take the full blow of Mu Kanglan, who was at the same level. Such a sea of blades was definitely enough to break her elemental energy defense and pierce her body. Moreover, the remaining energy could even penetrate her body. Although Yi Luo Yu was absolutely sure that she would not lose her life because of this, she was very unwilling to be injured like this. She had no choice but to let out a clear whistle. Her body spun like a whirlwind. As she dodged, she suddenly formed a powerful tornado. At the same time, the flashlight flashed and accurately knocked away each blade. However, the situation changed again. Even someone as strong as her could only protect herself and could not attack. This was the effect that Mu Kanglan wanted. With a flash of his body, several phantoms appeared at the same time. They rushed to the battlefield and swept across. In an instant, all the senior guards were gathered together. He shouted in a low voice, "Get ready." In the next moment, a palm turned into a beam of white light. The white light was blazing as it ruthlessly smashed into the depths of the ground. The white light flashed and disappeared. The people surrounding him had no idea what he was trying to do. They attacked the area below, but there was no enemy there. Just as he was thinking, suddenly, a loud rumbling sound came from the depths of the ground. This explosion was extraordinarily violent. The entire piece of land that was hundreds of feet deep was completely lifted up by this explosion. The land within a radius of hundreds of miles flew up neatly into the air. Screams rang out everywhere. A mushroom cloud slowly rose into the air. No one would have thought that Mu Kanglan would have buried so many explosives under his own house. Looking at the power of this wave of explosives, the most conservative estimate of the buried gunpowder was at least a few 100,000 kilograms. The entire marshal's mansion was instantly turned into a huge crater. Of all the people that had participated in this attack, a small portion had been injured in the previous battle and their souls scattered. The rest were also heavily injured. There were only a few that were able to escape unscathed. By the time Prime Minister Yi Luoyue's green-robed figure emerged from the smoke, Mu Kanglan and his bodyguard had already disappeared without a trace. Yi Luoyue's face was as calm as water. She looked at the mess on the ground and her subordinates covered in wounds. Her gaze was as cold as ice. Suddenly, she snorted coldly and left. The green robe that left was still untainted by a speck of dust, elegant and otherworldly. Along the way, her body became stooped again. Her hair turned white as if she was an old woman. At the South City Gate. The city gate that was completely covered in soul-setting iron and built by tens of thousands of experts, which was originally thought to be immortal for thousands of years, had completely collapsed. Mu Kanglan's hands were behind his back. His towering figure stood in the ruins as he watched the thousands of soldiers and horses leave the city. His gaze was like lightning. With Mu Kanglan in charge of bringing up the rear, the soldiers who left the city were all in high spirits. They no longer hesitated. All of them were in high spirits as they flew out. When they passed by Mu Kanglan, everyone respectfully saluted him. Although there were many people, they were orderly and did not panic at all. Mu Kanglan's black robe fluttered as he looked at the ruins in front of him with a complicated gaze. Looking at the imperial city that he had fought for his entire life to protect, his heart was filled with mixed feeling. Once upon a time, he had given his all to protect this piece of heaven and earth. Henceforth, he would be absolutely irreconcilable with this world. This was clearly the land that he deeply loved. Unless there was a day when Yuan Tianji's identity as the heavenly demon could be revealed to the world without a doubt and everyone had to acknowledge him, then he would be able to wash away the stain of traitor. Otherwise, before that, he could only carry this shameful title for a long time and continue to walk down this path. It was very likely that he would not be able to wash it clean even when he died. At this moment, he suddenly remembered something he had not seen in a long time. Meng Yue. His heart was filled with envy for no reason. Meng Wu Yue had left one step earlier. Although he had suffered an unjust injustice, he had escaped the control of the heavenly demon puppet earlier than him. Mu Kanglan stood there quietly, his thoughts drifting. For a moment, he felt a little sad, a little bitter, and a little lost. What should he do from now on? Yuan Tianji actually did not make any corresponding response to the rebellion of the army this time. This reality made Mu Kanglan even more certain that Yuan Tianji was definitely heavily injured in the rebellion of the Seven Kings. Yuan Tianji did not appear at all, and the hidden prime minister also left after a battle. Looking at the entire Mo Yuntian, there was no longer any power that could stop Mu Kanglan. However, Mu Kanglan really did not have the ability to kill Yuan Tianji in one fell swoop. Both sides could only wait silently, waiting for the other side to reveal a flaw. Waiting for the future, but both sides could feel that after this battle, no matter what the result was, Mo Yuntian's vitality would be greatly damaged. Perhaps Yuan Tianji didn't stop it now because he wanted to avoid this result of his vitality being greatly damaged. After this battle, no matter who won or lost, they would almost be unable to continue fighting. At that time, once the heavenly demons invaded, there would be one less power in the army that resisted the heavenly demons. Mu Kanglan thought of this and felt sad. But even if he knew that this would be the outcome, this civil war was still imperative, and it had to be carried out urgently. It was already late at night. 700 miles outside the city. Dense forest. General Mu, what should we do next? A general stood up and asked. Take the route south, and absorb our army along the way. The army's vanguard will be pointed at Yu Kai's troops. If Yu Kai can repent, we will give him a chance. If not, we can only destroy him. Before the righteous cause, we must be decisive. Then, we will join forces with Xie Danqiong and gather the superior forces to attack the north. We will eliminate the heavenly demon, Yuan Tianji, and pacify Yun Tian. Mu Kanglan's gaze was resolute. His grief was suppressed, but it was vast. This battle will cause countless lives to be lost. But we already have no other choice. Yes, we already have no other choice. No other choice. Yes, everyone was like this. They had no other choice. Mo Yuntian and Mu Kanglan's people had no other choice but to eliminate Yuan Tianji. Xie Danqiong also had no other choice now. And Yuan Tianji, as a heavenly demon, also had no other choice. This night is destined to be a bloody battle. If we win, the world will celebrate. If we lose, bones will litter the ground. Xie Danqiong was covered in blood as he stood in front of the similarly wounded troops. His expression was solemn, but there was silent fatigue. So, we have no other choice but to fight to the death. Because behind us are already our loved ones. We must win everything. The most precious protection. Xie Danqiong's voice was heavy. Below, everyone was silent. During this period of time, Xie Danqiong always took the lead in every battle. He was the first to rush into the enemy's formation and the last to retreat. In the bloody battles, he put himself in danger several times in order to save the soldiers on his side. He died countless times. This kind of charisma had long been formed. Those Dreamslayer army soldiers who had no choice but to come over were slightly repulsed by their new commander at the beginning. Later, they looked on coldly from the sidelines. Then, they slowly integrated with him and finally accepted him wholeheartedly now. It could be said that Xie Danqiong's charisma had conquered them. Thinking back, General Meng also led us to charge and break through the enemy lines in the past. Now, General Meng was wronged outside. We won't be able to see him for a while. To be able to accept the leadership of a person like Chief Xie, it could be said that we didn't cast pearls before swine. But at this moment, due to the continuous attacks of Yu Lai, although Xie Danqiong and the others were also good at fighting, they were still outnumbered. In the continuous bloody battles, Xie Danqiong and the others came back from the brink of death time and time again. They fought back from the brink of death time and time again, ambushed the enemy time and time again. They were defeated time and time again, but they fought again and again. In the past few months, they had eliminated more than 2 million enemies. However, they had lost 800 of their own men. Xie Danqiong's side had also gradually reached the end of the road. They were gradually forced to the brink of exhaustion. Now, even if they had thousands of brilliant plans, they had less than 200,000 wounded soldiers. Facing the encirclement of 3 million enemies, they were already helpless. If they retreated one more line of defense, they would reach their base camp. If they were captured by the enemy, all the old, weak, women, and children would be slaughtered. They would have no power to resist. Listening to Xie Danqiong's words, everyone's eyes turned red. I will fight to the death with you. Xie Danqiong's heart suddenly became clear and transparent as he spoke these words. It was as if he had let go of something, and also as if he had been freed from something. Chapter 2288. Everyone's eyes were shining brightly. Their leader could have broken through the siege by himself. There was no doubt that he had the strength to do so. If Xie Danqiong wanted to retreat, No one would be able to stop him even if there were millions of soldiers in front of him. However, Xiedan Qiong still made such a choice. This was an explanation. No one tried to persuade him because everyone knew that persuasion would be useless. Xiedan Qiong was as handsome as a woman, but once he had made up his mind, even a bull couldn't pull him back. Just like how he had been leading the charge in the previous battles until now. He was such a person. To be able to follow our leader in this life, I have no regrets even if I die. Everyone bowed at the same time. I hope we can be brothers in the next life. I hope we can still be together in the next life, gallop in Jianghu, and conquer the world. We are willing to repay you with our lives. We will follow you in life and death. We will never leave you. I hope we can be brothers in the next life. These words touched Xiedan Qiong's heart. He didn't speak for a long time. There was an indescribable bitterness in his heart. Xiedan Qiong quietly looked up at the sky for a long time. Then, he finally said in a heavy voice, "I'm sorry." His voice was distant and calm. He didn't know who he was apologizing to. "I'm sorry to all of you. Because you followed me, you had to suffer such a calamity. I'm sorry to my wife. I used to think, no, I was sure that we would be able to meet in Tianqiu. But now, it seems that we can't. I'm sorry to my big brother. Big brother Chu, I always believed that I could laugh proudly with you, and create an immortal legend that would last for thousands of years. But, I misspoke. Sometimes, a person's strength is limited. I can't do it. I'm sorry to my brothers. I thought I could stand at the peak with you, and laugh at the world. But, I will fall one step ahead of you today." Xiedan Qiong unconsciously recited in a low voice, "When we are happy, we sing and shout together. When the wind rises, we gallop in Jianghu together. When facing a strong enemy, we go through fire and water together. When facing danger, we go through a sea of fire and a mountain of blades together. If brother has a problem, I will draw my sword. If brother is in trouble, I won't return even if I die. If brother is by my side, I will be invincible." The expression on Xiedan Qiong's handsome face at this moment was very warm and bright. Torches flickered all around, illuminating Xiedan Qiong's tranquil face. Everyone was silent. "If you become a legend one day, I hope that I will be part of your legend. If I become a legend one day, I hope you'll be one of my legend." Xiedan Qiong smiled gently and warmly. The faces of his brothers slowly slid past his eyes. "Actually, how I wish I had you guys by my side right now. That way, I will be even more fearless." Now, even though there was still no fear, there was still a lot of loneliness and regret. "I'm Xiedan Qiong, Qianghua Xiedan Qiong. I was born in the Chongtian continent for 3.5 years. From a mere martial great master, I climbed all the way to revered martial artist, martial king, martial emperor, martial saint, and finally, revered martial artist. He ascended to the heavens and walked step by step until today, breaking through to the saint realm. My big brother helped me along the way. My brothers will accompany me. There are also countless bloody battles. If the heavens want me dead, brothers, don't come. If the heavens don't want me dead, I can still laugh proudly." A face that he hadn't seen for a long time seemed to appear in front of Xiedan Qiong's eyes. Chu Yang. In a daze, Chu Yang's eyes were as firm as before, as if telling him word by word, no matter when, no matter how bad the environment is, but you can't give up. As long as your heart is there, there's hope. Never give up. Xiedan Qiong nodded firmly. "Chief, can we request for more help from those who are secretly providing information?" Someone asked nervously. "No." Xiedan Qiong smiled warmly. "They're just an intelligence organization after all. They may not have any significant fighting power. I'm already very grateful that they've been providing us with information along the way. If I ask for more, I won't be able to get past myself. Since they don't want to reveal their identities, then they must continue to live in murky cloud sky. As men, how can we drag our benefactors who have helped us to the grave with us? There's no need to mention this again." The person who spoke lowered his head in shame. Xiedan Qiong thought, those people, if I'm not wrong, should be Mo Tianji's subordinates, or Chu Yang's people. They can't come over themselves, but they still sent people over. But now, we're already at the end of the road. To be honest, even if we have accurate information, it's useless. So, why should we drag our brothers' subordinates to the grave with us? It's also good to preserve some strength for our brothers. There's no need to sacrifice in vain. Outside, the war drums were suddenly beaten. The sound of battle cries that shook the heavens resounded. Everyone's expression turned cold. Is that moment finally coming? Xie Danqiong stood up and said, "Brothers, the last wave of fierce battle has arrived. Bring wine, let's have a toast first. On the road to hell, let's drink and chat. In this last battle, let's see who kills the most enemies. When the time comes, let's compete." Originally, everyone had sunk into a heavy and desolate atmosphere, but with Xie Danqiong's words, they all relaxed. That's right. This is indeed a competition. Song Q, you're definitely not as good as me. Fuck your mother's bullshit. You think you can beat me with your sickly bear appearance? You're delusional. Stop arguing. Someone said seriously, I, the champion, haven't even spoken yet. What are you arguing for? TSK. Just you. Ha ha ha, good wine. It's really good wine. Everyone laughed loudly. Smack. A wine bowl fell to the ground and smashed into pieces. Xie Danqiong was the first to stand up. His expression was solemn as he recited softly, "Let this battle become our never-ending legend in the Heaven Imperial Court." Ha ha ha. That's right. Let this battle become a never-ending legend in Heaven Imperial Court. Everyone followed behind Xie Danqiong and strode towards the front line. They didn't look back. The viburnum flowers bloomed as Xie Danqiong recited, "When we're happy, let's sing and shout together. Wherever the wind rises. With my brothers by my side, I'm invincible. Invincible." A group of people walked out with their blood boiling. Facing the cold wind, everyone's heart was surging. Perhaps, this will be the last battle in Heaven Imperial Court in my life. Just like what Head Xie said, let our final battle become a legend in the Heaven Tower. Everyone walked out in awe. Chapter 2289. Far away, in the military tent. Mo Yuntian's commander, Yu Kai, waved his hand. Pass down the order. The army does not move. The rest of the army, attack from all sides. The only thing is that we must use the wolfpack tactic to completely defeat the enemy. Yes. The sound of drums shook the sky. Countless soldiers and horses rushed out from the dense forest. In the sky, countless experts flew out continuously. Sword light and saber energy soared into the sky. Both sides were rapidly approaching each other. High up in the sky, a cluster of viburnum flowers suddenly bloomed. The viburnum flowers were incomparably beautiful. They were so beautiful that they were breathtaking and enchanting. However, such a breathtaking and beautiful scene also had a lethal power that could take people's lives. A handsome figure turned into a shocking rainbow. Everywhere he passed, the viburnum flowers bloomed. It was so beautiful that it could topple cities and countries. What followed was not the falling petals, but the enemy's corpses that fell like hailstones. Screams of agony filled the air. Xie Danqiong covered a distance of 500 feet in one go. Countless people had fallen down along the way. Viburnum flowers. It's the viburnum flowers. It's Xie Danqiong. We can't let him continue to act recklessly. Quickly stop him. Above and below, there were panic-stricken shouts. Since the beginning of the battle until now, who hadn't heard of the illustrious reputation of the viburnum flower during this period of almost a year? The name of the viburnum flowers, Xie Danqiong, had truly shaken the world. This was a reputation that had been earned through fighting, and an awe-inspiring might that had been gained through killing. The viburnum flowers were originally the most beautiful things. But now, they had become the biggest nightmare of Yu Kai's army. Seeing the viburnum flowers meant that there would be people who would lose their lives in this sky full of beautiful viburnum flowers. Xie Danqiong's viburnum flowers, the beautiful viburnum flowers, had become a symbol of death. Yu Kai looked at the sky full of colorful viburnum flowers blooming non-stop. He waved his hand. Then, Several figures rushed up to the sky with a whoosh sound and turned into rainbows across the sky. They rushed towards Xiedan Qiong's location. These people were top-notch experts who specialized in dealing with Xiedan Qiong. If they didn't send this kind of specialized personnel to deal with Xiedan Qiong and let him do as he pleased, then the number of lives reaped by the viburnum flower would be uncountable. In fact, in the previous battle, you had neglected Xiedan Qiong's personal lethality. A blind spot appeared in the layout, causing a gap to appear in the annihilation battle that could have been completely annihilated. The beautiful scenery presented by the viburnum flowers became more and more gorgeous. Xiedan Qiong leaped into the sky. His figure was confident and at ease, and his bearing was graceful. Even though he was in a battle of life and death, he still maintained his graceful and calm demeanor. He didn't show the slightest sign that he was at the end of his rope. From the beginning to the end, not a single shout came out of his mouth. From the beginning to the end, not a single curse came out of his mouth. Her entire being was like a pure and spotless viburnum flower. Together with his viburnum flowers, they wandered in the air, paced back and forth, and reaped human lives. However, they maintained an extremely elegant posture, as if they could maintain this posture until the end of time. Below, the officers and soldiers of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion rushed out like ferocious tigers out of the mountains, and faced the densely packed enemies on the opposite side. Kill! A thunderous roar came out. The curtains of the exceptionally cruel and bloody battle had officially opened. This was the last battle of their lives. The battle was in the most gorgeous way in the sky, and everywhere within a radius of hundreds of miles underground, there were battles everywhere. The assassins on Xiedan Qiong's side and the assassins on Yu Kai's side were doing their best to display their assassination skills. They were doing everything they could to reap human lives. No matter where the enemy was, including the enemy on the ground and the enemy in the sky. Arrows were flying everywhere. However, the arrows used here were different from the arrows used in the usual sense. These arrows were made of star core silver. At the very least, it required a peak-level celestial being expert to mobilize all of his strength to shoot them. They were called saint-breaking arrows. On top of the arrows, there was also the Heaven's Heart Destruction, which was known as the #1 poison in the world. That was the world's most toxic heavenly treasure. Once an arrow was shot, it would be as fast as lightning, and as fast as a meteor. Even the arrows of a saint-level expert would lose their fighting power in an instant. Even a top-notch assassin could only own no more than 20 of them in his lifetime. Some assassins whose names had shaken the world for hundreds of thousands of years had never seen these arrows before. These arrows were the ultimate trump cards of the assassins. They couldn't be used casually. However, at this moment, they were being shot out as if they were free goods. Everyone knew that this battle was the final battle to destroy the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. The final battle. If they won this battle, they would still have a chance to get back their arrows. After all, each arrow had their own divine sense imprint on it. However, if they lost the battle, they would lose their lives. So, how could they talk about arrows? No matter how precious they were, the assassins on both sides held the same idea. Bang 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 bang. Xiedan Qiong single-handedly faced the 5 top experts of the opposing side. His viburnum flowers fluttered and bloomed. It seemed as if he was fighting with his life on the line. However, his innate elegance was deeply ingrained in him. It seemed that no matter what kind of action it was, no matter how embarrassing or vulgar it was, Xiedan Qiong's body exuded an innate aristocratic aura. Bang! A loud sound was heard. Xiedan Qiong finally spat out a mouthful of blood. He spun and fell to the ground. His viburnum flowers fluttered and bloomed to protect his body. He fell into a battle below. Then, he continued to roll forward. His viburnum flowers bloomed along the way. The rolling heads looked like watermelons that had been knocked over. They rushed up with a whoosh sound, and fell down with a puff sound. Several of the enemies in the sky also spat out blood and fell to the ground. Some of them continued to chase after Xiedan Qiong. Some of them turned around and killed their way into the army. It was a chaotic battle from the beginning. It was extremely chaotic. And this extremely chaotic battlefield also made people feel from the bottom of their hearts what was true cruelty, real cruelty, the so-called cruelty. It was naturally feasible to fight one-on-one in a high-altitude battle in the ordinary sense of the word. In fact, the battlefield of high-level cultivators was more inclined to the high-altitude three-dimensional battle mode. However, if two armies were to engage in a large-scale battle, and the number of people participating in the battle would increase to a certain extent, millions of people would trample on each other. The atmosphere of the battle would become desperate. Then, no matter what kind of expert they were, they would choose to fall to the ground and fight on the ground. There were too many unpredictability on the battlefield. Enemies were everywhere as far as the eye could see. So, the chances of encountering an accident were naturally much lower than the high-altitude three-dimensional battle mode. This was the battle experience and wisdom accumulated by countless predecessors. Moreover, fighting in the high altitude also required the support of vitality. Every bit of yuan qi was infinitely precious in this kind of large-scale battle. How could it be wasted? Xie Dan Qiong took the lead. He charged and killed all the way. Although he was riddled with scars, his heart was still as cold as ice. There wasn't the slightest bit of restlessness. Thousands of soldiers charged back and forth. It could be said that Xie Dan Qiong's experience was very rich. Moreover, he didn't care about life and death as much as he used to. However, even so, Xie Dan Qiong still felt heartfelt heartache when he saw countless of his subordinates die an unnatural death. The battle had been chaotic from the beginning. It was extremely chaotic. This was a chaotic situation that Xie Dan Qiong's side had deliberately created. They were facing an enemy with overwhelming superiority. So, any deployment and any strategy would be of no use. It was better to be chaotic like this. Although those with lower cultivation would be at a disadvantage and would lose their lives very quickly, those with higher cultivation would be able to inflict great damage to the enemy. Even if they self-destructed at the last moment, they wouldn't have any scruples. Chaotic speculation created a turning point in the chaos and created a chance for survival. The battle cries shook the heavens and the earth. Even the distant drums couldn't be heard. However, Xie Dan Qiong felt that the pressure on his body was getting bigger and bigger. He knew that the main force of Yu Jie's army was finally dispatched. The dispatch of the main force meant that the end of the heavenly armament pavilion was coming. Xie Dan Qiong's heart was somewhat unwilling to accept this. However, he was still calm. When he had angrily caused trouble for Mo Yuntian, he had already prepared for this outcome. Afraid? There was nothing to be afraid of. It was just a pity. Many black-clothed figures came flying in the sky. They spread out in the sky. In the distance, there was a black mass of people swarming over. Looking sideways, he saw that his side's army was retreating in defeat. It could collapse at any time. Xie Dan Qiong let out a long sigh in his heart. The beautiful jade flower fluttered and bloomed again. He flew back in the sky. At this point, the defeat was set. Now, the only thing he could do was to make a final effort to see if he could save the families of these soldiers. If he couldn't, then he could only fight to the death here. If Xie Dan Qiong were to withdraw and escape from this death trap, he wouldn't let the families of hundreds of thousands of soldiers be slaughtered. The last battle. Completely annihilate the heavenly armament pavilion, kill the rebels and pacify the heavenly armament pavilion. The earth-shaking shouts came from Yu Jie's army. Xie Dan Qiong's eyes suddenly lit up. Perhaps there is another way to break this deadlock. That is, to kill the enemy's commander-in-chief, Yu Jie. However, Yu Jie was an army's commander-in-chief. Let's not talk about his amazing strength. How strong was the defense around him? How could it be easy to assassinate him? What's more, Yu Jie was almost at the same level as Xie Dan Qiong. He was even superior to Xie Dan Qiong. However, Xie Dan Qiong had no other choice now. The last move might not be able to protect the families of the soldiers. Yu Jie was cold-blooded and cruel. He would never accept his conditions. Instead of giving the choice to the other party, it was better to fight to the death. Chapter 2290. On both sides of him, countless enemy soldiers screamed and fell down. Blood splattered everywhere, forming a bloody alley. Xie Danqiong didn't make any moves according to the rules. Instead, he continued to rush forward without a care in the world. The viburnum flowers suddenly bloomed and turned into a haze that filled the entire sky. A kind of magnificent scene suddenly appeared in front of him. The two enemy generals didn't have time to wake up from this stunning beauty. They were already screaming strangely. Their hands covered their throats. Blood splattered out, and their bodies slowly fell down. It turned out that beauty could also be beautiful to death. This was the common understanding of the dead who died under the viburnum flowers. Xie Danqiong's figure really swept past like the wind. By the time the two enemy experts fell to the ground, he had already rushed forward no less than 1,000 feet. There were already more than 300 dead souls around him. Now, he was about 3,000 feet away from Yu Kai's army. Yu Kai's army had already started to attack. The number of people left behind to guard the commander's tent was relatively small. But Xie Danqiong wanted to force his way into the enemy's camp among the thousands of horse soldiers. He also wanted to brazenly kill the enemy's chief general. It was still an almost impossible task. Looking at the thousands of horse soldiers rushing over with unstoppable momentum, people and horses were thrown off their feet wherever he passed. Countless elite soldiers died one after another under this person's hands. Wherever he passed, a straight line formed a river of blood. Yu Kai's eyes slightly tightened. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She praised and said, "The viburnum flowers really live up to their reputation." Beside her, someone said softly, "However, with his current cultivation, he actually wants to carry out a decapitation operation against us. I don't know if he's too arrogant or overestimating his own capabilities." Hearing this, the others in the tent smiled. Everyone's smile was full of ridicule. In fact, Xie Danqiong's current movements and intentions were clearly seen by everyone. But no one thought that Xie Danqiong had the ability to decapitate. Not to mention others, just talking about the tent at this moment, there were more than 10 people whose cultivation was not lower than Xie Danqiong's. And there were 3 or 4 people who were far superior to Xie Danqiong. And these 3 or 4 people just happened to be the target of Xie Danqiong's action this time, Yu Kai. The success rate of Xie Danqiong's beheading strategy was less than 1,000th under such a huge disparity in strength. Yu Kai's eagle-like eyes stared at the figure, who was still dashing and at ease despite being bathed in blood, as he said in an indifferent voice, "Now that the battle has been decided, we are bored. Let him come over, and let us personally experience the methods of this Qianghua." Yes. The enemy who had besieged Xie Danqiong suddenly retreated like a receding tide under this order. It was as if a wide and unobstructed path had appeared out of thin air between him and the tent at the top of the mountain, straight up. A path that had been predicted and calculated had unexpectedly appeared in such a manner. Xie Danqiong took a deep breath. Then, he slowly stretched his stiff fingers. Then, he slowly moved the joints of his body. He slowly circulated his martial power to heal the accumulated injuries on his body. However, his speed didn't slow down even in the slightest. Like a shooting star, he rushed towards his target. Xie Danqiong also understood that the enemy had seen through his plans. Now that they had given him such a direct path, they must have set up countless traps and were waiting for him to die. But he had already come this far, how could he retreat at the last minute? No matter if it was a mountain of blades or a sea of fire, no matter how difficult it was, he had to charge through this time. The only way to break out of this situation was to find a path to survival. Seeing Xie Danqiong charge without any hesitation or reduction in speed. In the tent, many generals couldn't help but show expressions of admiration and respect. While they were enemies, it did not affect the respect they had for heroes and men. There were very few rulers that could make such a choice when they were at the end of the road. Xie Danqiong, as expected of a man, whoosh. Xie Danqiong's rapidly flying figure appeared in front of the tent. His body was covered in blood, but it did not diminish his dashing presence. His tall and slender figure made him look even more handsome. He slowly took 2 steps and said with a slight smile, Marshal Yu's tent is near a mountain and a river, easy to defend and hard to attack. As expected, the location is very good. As expected of a master of the art of war, this Xie has seen it. At this moment, he looked like a noble who was sightseeing and giving pointers. He really didn't look like someone who had come here for a bloody battle. Yu Kai smiled faintly. Chief Xie's presence is also rare. You can be said to be an elite of the world. This Yu admires it greatly. Xie Dan Qiong shook his head. Your admiration is useless. I have come to take your head. Ha 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 ha. Of the 30 to 40 people in the tent, more than half of them roared with laughter. Xie Dan Qiong had come here, and after seeing such a lineup, he still dared to say that he would take Yu Kai's head. This was too arrogant. Or was he overestimating himself? As long as Chief Xie has the ability, you can take this head of this marshal at any time. Yu Kai laughed and then his expression became unprecedentedly serious. He asked in a low voice, Xie Dan Qiong, I will ask you one last time. Now, the situation is clear. Are you still not willing to surrender to me? Yu Kai asked word by word. You are at the end of the road. As long as I give the order, the 1,000,000 wounded soldiers you are protecting, the 3 million family members, and the less than 400,000 people you have on the battlefield will all be annihilated. Even the fact that you are able to come before me is a gift from me, Yu Kai said seriously. So, you are still not willing to surrender? Xie Dan Qiong smiled. From what Marshal Yu means, if I surrender now, these people can live. Yu Kai shook his head slowly. That is impossible. Or, some of them can live. For example, I can spare your original subordinates. However, those who originally belonged to the Dream Slayer army and their families must die. To tell you the truth, I only value you, Xie Dan Qiong. That's all. Yu Kai said, as long as you are willing to surrender, I can promise you that you will not be investigated for taking in rebels or for plotting a rebellion. Instead, you can live a life of wealth and prosperity. I promise you, you can be ranked in the heavenly court. Ranked in the heavenly court. These words caused many people's eyes to light up. The conditions that Rain Lagging offered were undoubtedly very generous. Xie Dan Qiong sighed. Most of my subordinates were killed by your words. So, I still have to surrender. Is the heavens playing tricks on me? As he spoke, he suddenly took off his blood-stained battle robe and revealed the clothes underneath. He said with a smile, wait a moment, let me change. Everyone was stunned at the same time. How could this guy still change his clothes in front of so many enemies at this time? What was he doing now? However, there seemed to be some room to maneuver. Had Xie Dan Qiong been moved by Marshal Yu's words? Xie Dan Qiong casually threw out the blood-red battle robe in a natural and unrestrained manner. Then, he touched his ring, and a white robe appeared. Xie Dan Qiong slowly put on the white robe. The white robe was spotless like a snow lotus on the top of a snowy mountain, pure and holy. The white robe had covered all the wounds on Xie Dan Qiong's body. At this moment, he was in high spirits. He was handsome and confident, and his eyes were filled with elegance and nobility. A fine duke in a chaotic world, a handsome young man, just like when they first met Chu Yang in the Three Heavens, that noble and aloof man. I've always loved wearing white. Even when I'm in battle, I still wear white. Xie Dan Qiong slowly tied a belt around his waist. With a snap, he opened a folding fan and said with a smile, the white robe I am wearing was made for me by my wife. This folding fan was given to me by my father when I ascended to the heavenly imperial court. Xie Dan Qiong smiled. Yuqi, you let me come here safely. How can I not give you a big gift in return? The viburnum flowers are about to bloom. All of a sudden, the entire tent was filled with blooming viburnum flowers without any warning. It was as if countless petals were falling from the sky, and also as if countless petals were surging out from the ground. There were also countless petals that were blooming in the void. It was just that every petal was flickering with that kind of cold, yet elegant cold light. Taking people's souls. Taking people's lives. Although everyone was already on guard against Xie Dan Qiong's sudden attack, They did not expect Xie Danqiong's attack to be so sudden. They did not know that Xie Danqiong was sighing in his heart. Why can't I be Wu Jueqing? Or Chu Le? Or even Big Brother Chu Yang? If Wu Jueqing or Chu Le were to appear in front of the enemy at such a close distance, it would mean that everyone's lives were already in their hands, at their mercy. If Chu Yang was at such a close distance, with the shocking lethality of the tribulation sword technique, if he attacked with all his might, there was also a high chance of killing Yuqi. But Xie Danqiong did not have the special abilities required for these few things. He could only rely on his own viburnum flowers. When the viburnum flowers bloom, all other flowers wither. Yuqi snorted. I knew you had this trick up your sleeve. But I still dared to let you come here. Isn't this enough to explain the problem? In the tent, all the experts attacked at the same time. Xie Danqiong's silhouette suddenly flew out like a streamer of light. It was unknown how much mountain-like power had hit his body. But it seemed as if he hadn't felt it at all. He was blindly facing Yu Kai, and was persistently attacking her. Me. Chapter 2291. The rumbling sound was getting further and further away. Everyone had actually retreated. Xie Danqiong looked at everything that was happening in front of him. Looking at the people who surrounded him retreating like a tide, he was also dumbfounded. What the hell is going on? Could it be that Xie Danqiong's heart suddenly started to beat wildly? Could it be that reinforcements had arrived? And it was a large-scale reinforcements. The number was so large that even Yu Yi had to consider it for fear of being attacked from both sides. However, this was Mo Yuntian. In this world, how could he have such a large scale of reinforcements? After a long while, the rumbling sound came from afar, from faintly discernible to clearly audible, and then to shaking the earth. A large flag fluttering in the wind suddenly rushed out from the corner of the mountain path in front of the dense forest. On it, a large Mu character appeared impressively. The tide-like army appeared once again, but it was no longer Yu Yi's army. A group of people separated into two sides, and a person rode out. His long beard fluttered in the wind, and his face was thin, but there was a hint of worry between his brows. Mu Kanglan. At the most crucial moment, Mu Kanglan's army finally dared to come and meet up with Xie Danqiong. The most critical crisis had finally passed. With the arrival of Mu Kanglan's army, Yu Yi's army finally retreated. Before receiving the new reinforcements sent by Yuan Tianji, Yu Yi definitely did not have the guts to confront the current Mu Kanglan. The most important thing was that Yu Yi did not know what had happened in the capital that could cause Mu Kanglan's complete betrayal. Mu Kanglan's influence and rallying power in the military had reached a shocking level. Along the way to the south, the number of troops he gathered along the way had reached tens of millions. This number already accounted for 1/10 of Mo Yuntian's actual military strength. There were still too many people who did not know the truth of the matter. As time passed, there would be more and more people who would come after hearing the news. At Xie Danqiong's most critical moment, Mu Kanglan's army arrived in time, and the two sides that originally had no possibility of joining forces met here. Perhaps it was because of their original differences. Both sides thought that it was impossible for them to walk together again. Now that they had actually walked together, both sides felt a sense of awkwardness. After cleaning up the battlefield, the high-level officials of both sides gathered together and entered Xie Danqiong's meeting hall. No matter what, this kind of contact was necessary. No matter how awkward it was, this contact had to be carried out. This time, Mu Kanglan was leading an army of tens of millions. Although Xie Danqiong's side was the weaker side, they had been fighting until now. It could be said that the issue of master and subordinate was the most important thing at the moment. He had to confirm it as soon as possible. There are no two suns in the sky, no two monarchs in a country, and no two commanders in an army tilde. Otherwise, even if it was temporarily stable, there would definitely be internal strife in the future, and it would be impossible to avoid it in the long run. Wang Dao led the assassins under his command, as well as the head of Mo Tianji's secret intelligence department, and followed Xie Danqiong into the main hall. In my opinion, Commander Mu is a man of virtue and prestige. If we want to succeed, Commander Mu must take charge of the overall situation in person. What's more, if it wasn't for Marshal Mu's powerful arrival, I'm afraid that the Heavenly Armament Pavilion would have already ceased to exist. That's not true. Chief Xie led everyone to fight a bloody battle. After several hardships, the current situation was created. Commander Mu has just arrived and doesn't understand the situation. If he rashly led everyone, it would be difficult for him to convince everyone. I think that it's better for Chief Xie to take charge of the overall situation. That day, the Dream Slayer army wasn't Chief Xie's headquarters. Now, they are all sincerely convinced by Chief Xie. That's right. Chief Xie is the one who everyone wants. Sure enough. They only said a few words, but the subordinates of both sides were already in a mess because of this matter. The smell of gunpowder was getting thicker and thicker. At the beginning, both sides could still smile and argue. Later on, they gradually glared at each other and slammed the table. Xie Danqiong and Mu Kanglan didn't even have time to speak before swords were drawn in the main hall. It was as if a fight was about to break out. Chief Xie, regarding the current situation, what do you think? Mu Kanglan had a mysterious smile on his face. Xie Danqiong smiled and said, I would like to hear what your plan is, Commander Mu. Mu Kanglan laughed and said, I don't care about myself. I'm just a little worried that with the current situation, Chief Xie alone may not be able to appease everyone. Xie Danqiong's people from the Heavenly Armament Pavilion heard this and their hearts tightened. The meaning of Mu Kanglan's words was very clear. He wanted to have the final say. They just didn't know what Chief Xie would say. If Chief Xie was the first to take a step back, then even if they were to break their heads, it would still be of no avail. It would be of no avail. Mu Kanglan's people were shocked when they heard this. They looked at Xie Danqiong with shining eyes, waiting to see how he would respond. Xie Danqiong pursed his lips and smiled, saying, Why don't I know about this? Since when do we need to use face? We've always used our fists, haven't we? This sentence was full of hidden meaning. The meaning was also clear. Although you turned the situation around at the last moment, I will not easily give up my power. Although the two of them were opposing each other, they were both helpless in their hearts. Mu Kanglan was a person of virtue and prestige, but Xie Danqiong was already established. If Mu Kanglan hastily gave up his position, the tens of thousands of troops under his command would definitely not agree. We followed you because of you, Mu Tianlan, and not Xie Danqiong. If Xie Danqiong took a step back, his subordinates, who had been bathed in blood all the way until now, would inevitably be dissatisfied in their hearts even if they didn't say anything. If a conflict arose between the two sides because of this, then it would be a big problem. Therefore, neither of them would take a step back. Marshal Mu, other than my boss, I, Xie, have never been inferior to anyone else in my entire life. Even if Chief Mu is here now, there is no exception. Xie Danqiong smiled gently, but the attitude expressed in his words was that he would not take a step back. He was not the only one here. Boss Chu's people and Mo Tianji's people were here too. He was here on behalf of Brother Tribulation, not just himself. Brother Jie never bowed his head. I can't lose the face of my brothers. Mu Kanglan's expression changed instantly. He said slowly, with the reputation that I have accumulated for 1,000,000 years, the cultivation of a peak saint, and the experience of leading an army for 1,000,000 years, I really can't make Chief Xie take a step back? Xie Danqiong smiled. Yes, what Chief Mu said is an indisputable fact. However, Chief Mu, the first thing I want to refute is, although you have the cultivation of a peak high-level saint, and I am ashamed of my inferiority, I am also at the peak level of a beginner saint now. Although I am much weaker than you in this aspect, I am only 20 years old now. Xie Danqiong raised his head. His eyes were like spring water, but they were aggressive. I, a nobody, cultivated from nothing to the peak level of a beginner saint. Even if you include the days when I was in my mother's womb, I have only cultivated for these 20 years. Chief Mu, how many days did you use to cultivate to your current level? What kind of strength did you have when you were 20 years old? Mu Kanglan was instantly embarrassed and speechless. The people of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion behind Xie Danqiong almost burst out laughing. Xie Danqiong's words were really sharp. Of course, it was also very strange. Yes, you have a high position and power. Your cultivation is high. These are all true. However, you have spent millions of years to accumulate everything you have today. I, on the other hand, only used 20 years to have the foundation I have now. However, what cultivation did you have when you were my age? What foundation? I am indeed inferior in this aspect. I would like to hear 2 reasons. If there is one, there must be 2, right? Mu Kanglan waved his hand to stop the restlessness behind him. Instead, he asked with interest. Secondly, although Commander Mu has a powerful army, but in the current situation, it is very sudden to make a mutiny. Although it is because of the heavenly demons and evil demons, it is not appropriate for Commander Mu to be the leader of the rebel army. It will be hard to avoid gossip. Xie Danqiong smiled and did not complete his sentence. Mu Kanglan nodded and said, "This point is indeed correct. Although Yuan Tianji is a demonic Evildor, I have always been his subordinate for countless years. If I really become the leader of the uprising, people will definitely make a fuss about it. They will say that I rebelled because I wanted to take a step further for my own power. This is indeed something we must guard against. We must guard against it." The generals behind Mu Kanglan were first stunned. Then, they understood. Then, they felt a wave of disappointment. That's right, this was indeed a big problem. It would definitely be the focus of public opinion. Guarding against gossip was more important than guarding against a river. That was impossible to guard against. When the time comes, once this public opinion was formed, Mu Kanglan's appeal would definitely be destroyed. Thirdly, Commander Mu knows too many people in the heavenly courts. There are really many people who are familiar with Commander Mu's methods in the art of war and tactics. In this aspect, he is inevitably weak. No matter how scheming and far-sighted he is, he has long formed a fixed pattern of thinking. It will be difficult for him to escape the calculations of someone with ulterior motives. Xie Danqiong smiled faintly. The 4th reason is that other than all the power I have now, I still have endless external help. However, this can only be said for you. Although you have millions of subordinates, it is already the limit. It is also a tree without roots, a limited source. The 5th reason is that the battle against the heavenly devil is a huge matter of the entire heavenly court. It is not a private matter of the heavenly court. Xie Danqiong smiled. Your previous thoughts of revenge are too narrow. The first reason is that I am young. The people of the heavenly court of Moyun have not experienced much of my methods. I can always win by surprise. Most importantly, I have a good reason. Chapter 2292. Among all these reasons, this marshal feels that the last personal reason is the most reasonable. Mu Kanglan laughed and turned around. How is it? Do you all understand now? Everyone nodded. Although they were still a little uncomfortable, after listening to Xie Danqiong's analysis of the pros and cons, even a fool could tell right from wrong. Although Xie Danqiong's last reason was very arrogant and unpleasant to the ears, it also proved that Xie Danqiong had this ambition. As for Mu Kanglan, no matter what his background was, he had only been a subordinate for 1,000,000 years. To be honest, how could he have the ambition to go further? Moreover, the fact that Yuan Tianji was an extraterrestrial demon had already left a stain on Mu Kanglan that would be difficult to remove for the rest of his life. That was to serve the extraterrestrial demon loyally for 1,000,000 years. What kind of shame and humiliation was this? If he didn't cleanse himself, how could Mu Kanglan have the face to go further? That's it. Mu Kanglan stood up and made the final decision. All the troops under my command will be merged into the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Chief Xie will still be the chief. I, Mu Kanglan, will shamelessly continue to be the Grand Marshal and lead the troop. However, all dispatches and orders must be obeyed by Chief Xie. Anyone who disobeys or tries to rebel will be executed immediately without mercy. Mu Kanglan originally didn't want to fight for the position of the leader of the anti-demon army. When the matter of Yuan Tianji came out, Mu Kanglan was furious and ashamed, but in fact, his heart was like dead ashes. He didn't have the face to see anyone, let alone fight for the position of leader. However, with so many subordinates following him, most of them came for him, Mu Tianlan. If he couldn't come up with a convincing reason, it was inevitable that people wouldn't be able to accept it. If they simply couldn't accept it, it would be fine. If it caused a negative incident because of this, it would be his fault. Xiedan Qiong had also stated the reason in front of everyone. So, the transition had become a matter of course. And, when the conditions were right, success would come naturally. As for Mu Kanglan continuing to lead the troops as the Grand Marshal, Xiedan Qiong didn't have any objections. In fact, it was exactly what he wanted. Other than Mu Kanglan, there was really no one else who could suppress this group of arrogant soldiers. Even if he didn't count his own subordinates, most of the other members were originally from the Dream Slayer army. They definitely wouldn't dislike being led by Mu Kanglan. Both sides hit it off immediately. Just now, it was as if they had cooperated to put on a big show. However, this show was necessary. It was equivalent to laying a solid foundation for Mo Yuntian's future. The next morning, Mu Kanglan steadied the army and reorganized the troops. He began to appoint generals and prepare for the northern expedition. At the same time, a proclamation to suppress the extraterrestrial demons and devils were announced to the world. The heavenly Emperor, Yuan Tianji, was extraterrestrial heavenly demon. Extraterrestrial demons wreaked havoc and the people had no way of making a living. They invaded purple clouds and plunged the people into misery and suffering. There were extraterrestrial demons who had sneaked into Heavenly Palace early on and wanted to do great things. The Heavenly Emperor of Mo Yuntian, Yuan Tianji, is the extraterrestrial demon king. Once it was revealed, the world would be shocked. The 7-star guards rose to kill the extraterrestrial demons. However, the extraterrestrial demons were cruel and cunning. They killed the 5 kings. Today, the Mo Yuntian army rose to kill the extraterrestrial demons and return Mo Yuntian to us. Everyone has the responsibility to kill the extraterrestrial demons. Killing the extraterrestrial demons is the most urgent matter. The million years of humiliation of Mo Yuntian will be cleansed today. Men with lofty ideals, the proclamation listed the crimes of the extraterrestrial demons one by one. It also analyzed Yuan Tianji's identity from the basics until it was clear. No one would have the slightest doubt. As long as one had doubts about Yuan Tianji's identity and looked at this proclamation, they would believe it without a doubt. This proclamation was written by Mu Kanglan's old friend, the erudite scholar Ji Hong. This old man had students all over the world. His students moved when they heard the news, and their momentum was even greater. And the shocking news of Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian is extraterrestrial demon was like a bomb that suddenly exploded in the entire Heavenly Imperial Court. Book Maniac and Painting King were seriously injured and fled outside at top speed. However, they had encountered dozens of pursuers along the way. Many times, they had almost lost their lives. Almost all the secret experts under Yuan Tianji's command came out in full force. Yuan Tianji's hatred towards Book Maniac and Painting King could not be washed away even if the 3 rivers and 5 lakes were emptied. The ones who came out this time were the extraterrestrial demons that Yuan Tianji had been hiding all along. Every one of them was an expert among experts. Moreover, every one of them used the extraterrestrial demon's unique blood escape technique to chase after the 2 kings at top speed. Blood escape technique was the extraterrestrial demon's secret technique. First, the user had to sacrifice himself to see its effect. Every time this secret technique was used, not to mention the effect, the negative effects could not be recovered in a short time. If it was used 3 times in a row, even if it was an extraterrestrial demon king, there would also be the danger of his whole body collapsing. From this, It could be seen how urgent Yuan Tianji was to capture Book Maniac and Painting King. Just like this, they ran and fought all the way. The Painting King and Painting King were also angered. Originally, the two kings were disheartened by the death of many of their brothers, and they had already told Mu Tianlan that Yuan Tianji was an extraterrestrial demon. Their biggest worry had already been resolved, so they didn't really want to leave Mo Yuntian. They only wanted to find a place to stay in Mo Yuntian first, and after recovering from their injuries, go find Yuan Tianji to take revenge. However, they didn't expect to be chased by a group of extraterrestrial demons. After being chased all the way, the two changed their original intention. "Aren't you afraid that we will escape from Mo Yuntian? In that case, we must escape no matter what. Go to Demon Emperor Heaven, find Chu Yang, and settle the score in the future." Both of them had the same idea in their hearts. Then, they thought about the words Chu Yang had told them when they left the Demon Emperor Heaven more than a month ago. They thought about how their 5 brothers were still alive at that time, but now, their souls had already dispersed. The two of them couldn't help but feel grief and hatred. They suddenly felt that right now, only Chu Yang could help them take revenge. Right now, only Chu Yang had the huge capital to fight against Yuan Tianji. As long as they found Chu Yang, they would be able to recover from their injuries in peace. The two of them first went to other heavens and earth, and contacted the 7 star guards of their respective heavenly emperors. Then, they gathered their forces and came to fight against Yuan Tianji. They must completely destroy this extraterrestrial demon. Both of them were peak-level experts. Although they were seriously injured at this moment, they still had the ability to escape. They chased and escaped like this for more than 20 days. Although they met with danger again and again, they were always able to avoid danger and actually reached the seaside. The other side was Demon Emperor Heaven. But when they reached here, the two of them were a little worried. If they wanted to cross this sea, when their cultivation was at its peak, it was naturally not a problem. They only needed to transform into a rainbow, and at most half a day's time would have passed. But now that they were seriously injured, they couldn't do it. Moreover, if they were being chased on land, they could at least find a place to rest and recover. But if they were to start a chase on the vast sea, it was all seawater below, boundless and without any time or place to catch their breath. Once they entered the sea, even if the two of them had great abilities, they couldn't be compared to extraterrestrial demons, these monsters that were stronger in the water than on land. Then, wouldn't that be a dead end? But now that they were already here, if they didn't cross the sea, it meant that they couldn't reach Demon Emperor Heaven, and they couldn't see Chu Yang. As time passed, once the extraterrestrial demons chasing them all joined together, they would still be annihilated here. The two of them thought over and over again, but still couldn't come up with a good idea. Looking at each other in a daze, the two of them had complicated looks in their eyes. Seeing their brother in such a sorry state and exhausted state, both of them felt extremely uncomfortable in their hearts. The painting and calligraphy kings, these two had always paid attention to their own image. At any time, they were immortal-like and untainted. But now, being chased until now, they hadn't washed their faces properly for more than 20 days, and hadn't even tidied up their hair once. It was a complete mess as far as the eye could see. Both of their hearts ached from the bottom of their hearts. Behind them, the familiar sharp sound of the air being torn apart sounded again. The experts of the extraterrestrial demons had already caught up. Fight. Cross the sea. The painting and calligraphy kings looked at each other and made the same decision at the same time. At the same time, the two of them made another decision in their hearts. If they were truly exhausted in the process of crossing the sea and were caught up by the enemy, they would rather sacrifice themselves to ensure that their brothers would be able to safely reach the Demon Emperor sky. Both of them were already mentally prepared for this. A shrill howl sounded, and 2 rainbows suddenly appeared. The painting and calligraphy kings disappeared at the same time. In the sky, 2 rainbows flashed and disappeared. Very good. They have finally embarked on this path. The path of no return that we have designed for them. The leader of the extraterrestrial demons had a face as black as charcoal, but his eyes emitted a strange blue light. Everyone, listen to my orders. Pursue them at full speed. We must kill these two bastards and report back to His Majesty, the Heavenly Demon King. Yes. In the sky above the sea, an unprecedented pursuit was unfolding. The two rainbows in front were fleeing desperately, and there were more than 10 streams of black gas chasing after them desperately. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. Seeing that they hadn't even crossed half of the sea, the painting and calligraphy kings felt despair in their heart. Could it be that we are really going to be killed here? But we still have so many grievances, and that deep hatred, and the hopes of our 5 brothers. How can we die now? How can we die? Both of them were roaring in their hearts, and they used almost all their strength to dash forward. However, the 2 rainbows that they had transformed into were already showing signs of disarray. Chapter 2293. The strength of those palms was not strong, but the meaning of humiliation was too obvious. The strange laughter did not come from the back. Second brother, these 2 guys claim to be the top experts of the Heaven Imperial Court. Why do they look like sick seedlings? They don't live up to their reputation. That's right, that's right. They look like they could be blown down by a strong wind. It's so embarrassing. Sigh, I have no appetite. I was looking forward to it, but now I don't even have the mood to eat them. Are these 2 sick? They might have a stomachache if they eat them. The 2 of them were fuming with anger. If you weren't seriously injured by Yuan Tianjie before, would you be able to be so arrogant in front of me with just a few pieces of trash like you? But there was nothing they could do now. A dragon in shallow water would be teased by shrimps, and a tiger on the plains would be bullied by dogs. The enemies had caught up with them. There was no hope of escaping. There was no point in holding on. The 2 of them made up their minds and suddenly turned around. Even if they were going to die, they would drag a few more people down with them. The awe-inspiring demeanor of the 2 at this moment startled the 15 heavenly demons behind them. Then, they cried out in anger out of humiliation, "You're at death's door, and you still dare to play tricks like this? Kill them! Kill them! How dare they go against us? They don't know what's good for them. Speaking of which, I haven't tasted the meat of a sage peak expert. This time, I'm going to have a taste. Even if I have a stomachache, I can't care so much." The 2 of them looked as cold as ice. They tried their best to raise their remaining cultivation, and even had the thought of self-detonating. If their corpses were to be eaten by these heavenly demons and Evilders after they died, that would be the ultimate humiliation. What do you want to eat? Is it delicious? At this critical moment, a curious voice came out. Before this, no one had noticed that there was another person hiding in the sky above the sea. The moment they heard this voice, everyone jumped in fright. Although the 2 kings of calligraphy and painting were shocked, they were more indifferent. This was because the situation had already reached a point where it could not get any worse. Even if another heavenly demon appeared, it would not be able to make the situation worse for them. So what else did it matter? However, as a person in a desperate situation, he was unwilling to let go of even the slightest bit of hope. After all, that person's voice and tone were clearly not on the same side as the heavenly demons. Since he was not the friend of the enemy, he could be the enemy of the enemy. In other words, he could also be the friend of the enemy who could turn his dangerous situation around. When the heavenly demon heard that person's reply, it became even more furious. The group of sky devils knew that other than them, there were no other companions chasing after them. Therefore, this guy who came in and talked without any reason must be a local of Heaven Imperial City. Since he was a native of Heaven Imperial City, he was destined to be an enemy. He might even be a troublesome character who could affect the outcome of this mission. How could their complacent state of mind not be angry and dejected? Who the hell is playing tricks over there? Come out if you have the guts. Who do you think you are to hide your head and show your tail? The leading heavenly demon shouted. Hey! The invisible intruder suddenly said in surprise, "You guys are really weird. Why are you hiding a pair of wings? No, why are there no feathers at all? If there are no feathers, what are they called? It's the first time for me to see guys like you. I'm really curious. Bring them over and let me take a closer look. I'll analyze them. Don't be sad if you don't have a name. I'll give you a nice name later. I'm sure you'll be satisfied. How dare you? How dare you? The 15 heavenly demons were so angry that their lungs almost exploded. Heavenly demon wings. This was the supreme glory of the heavenly demon clan. This pair of wings could be hard or soft, and they were ever-changing. Even if a heavenly demon lost his cultivation during a battle, he could still fly thousands of miles with this pair of wings. Moreover, it could be used as a protective weapon, which was indestructible and invincible. When not in use, he could hide it behind his back. No one would be able to see anything unusual about it. This was the symbol of status in the heavenly demon clan. Simply put, in the heavenly demon clan, not all heavenly demons had this pair of wings. Only the purest heavenly demons, who had to cultivate to the level of demon general and above, were qualified to be enlightened once by the heavenly demon king and have a pair of wings appear on his rib. In the heavenly demon clan, if any heavenly demon saw his heavenly demon wings, he would be infinitely envious. There were billions of heavenly demons in the heavenly demon clan. How many of them could have the heavenly demon wings? They, the elites of the heavenly demons, secretly followed the heavenly demon king into the black cloud skyland. They worked hard for 1,000,000 years before they were enlightened by Demon King Meng Tian and had a pair of heavenly demon wings as a reward. How could they allow this person in the dark to mock and humiliate them like this? How dare you? The person in the dark laughed. Suddenly, with a crisp sound, the clothes of one of the heavenly demons were torn apart, revealing the heavenly demon wings that had always been hidden and shining with golden light. TSK, it's indeed an extraordinary thing. This pair of wings is not of an ordinary species. Are you heavenly demons from the heavenly demon realm? It's indeed fucking weird. Ha ha ha. That person laughed out loud. With wings on your body, aren't you fucking birdmen? Come out. The 15 heavenly demons shouted together, and their momentum was extremely terrifying. Fine, I'll come out. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Along with this voice, a green smoke suddenly appeared in midair. That green smoke slowly condensed and actually condensed into a solid human figure. Then, the human figure changed, and his facial features appeared in front of them one by one. A man in green, wearing a hemp robe and a high hat, appeared in front of everyone with a dignified demeanor. It's him. The painting and calligraphy kings heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts at the same time. As their minds relaxed, the internal breathing that they had been forcefully maintaining was messed up. Their bodies were on the verge of collapsing, and they almost fell into the sea. The other heavenly demons might not know who the person in front of them was, but the two of them knew clearly. This was the divine soul of a calamity, and in the entire Heaven Imperial Court, there was only one divine soul of a calamity that was still alive. That was the divine soul of a calamity that had been following Chu Yang, but they didn't know why this big brother had come here. But no matter what the reason was, since the divine soul of a calamity appeared here, the two of them were safe. Although the heavenly demons that came to pursue them had outstanding cultivations, they were still far inferior to the 7-star guards. If they were not injured and in good condition, either of the painting king or calligraphy crazy would be able to deal with a dozen heavenly demons on their own, and it would be effortless. It was just that the injuries they suffered this time really affected their divine soul, spiritual consciousness, cultivation, and physical body. Their original strength was almost less than 100%. That was why they were unable to fight back, and in the end, they didn't even have the strength to resist. Although the cultivation of the calamity spirit was still inferior to the two in their peak state, its undying and indestructible characteristics and endless offensive methods were something that the two of them could not compare to. Dealing with these 15 heavenly demons was a piece of cake. It could even be said that it was the nemesis of these heavenly demons and Evilders. Who the hell are you? The leader of the heavenly demons couldn't help but ask cautiously when he saw the divine soul of a calamity appear calmly without the slightest hint of nervousness or fear. You're asking who I am? I'm your ancestor. The green-robed figure was naturally the divine soul of a calamity. He laughed and said, "My name is the Emperor. How dare you? Impudent! You're courting death. Kill him." With angry curses, all the heavenly demons attacked together, almost going crazy. The heavenly demon clan's most supreme ruler now was none other than His Majesty the Emperor. And this guy in front of them was clearly doing it on purpose. Any heavenly demon clan member would not be able to bear this if they heard it. Good timing. The divine soul of a calamity laughed strangely. Suddenly, his entire body split into 15 green-robed figures. Each of them took on a heavenly demon, and they fought fiercely in the air. At this point, the painting king and calligraphy crazy were completely relieved. The last time they saw the divine soul of a calamity, he could only transform into black smoke. Now, he had become green smoke. Half of the gloomy and terrifying aura was gone, but there was a lot more elegance. Obviously, his cultivation had improved greatly. The last time they saw him, he could only create countless clones to harass the enemy, and their lethality was not enough to kill high-level experts. But now, the clones he created were no different from his original body in terms of attack power. They could kill the enemy very effectively. This was undoubtedly a huge improvement. Although they did not understand how the divine soul of a calamity could improve so quickly, the two knew that this change must have something to do with Chu Yang. As they spoke, the seawater in the sky suddenly surged up, and in an instant, it shot up 1,000 feet into the sky. For a moment, the scene of the water and the sky connecting appeared. Seeing this, the painting king panicked and hurriedly shouted, "Don't let the heavenly demon come into contact with the seawater." The heavenly demon's heavenly demon wings were even more powerful in the water. Its swimming speed was more than 10 times faster than an ordinary person's. If the battlefield changed to an underwater battle, not only would the divine soul of a calamity lose his advantage, he might even be in great danger. And the reason for this change was that although the divine soul of a calamity had a high cultivation, he lacked experience in fighting against heavenly demons. Stirring up the seawater in the sky was originally intended to harass the enemy, but it turned out to be a trap for himself, putting himself in a dangerous situation. Seeing this, the 15 heavenly demons were all overjoyed. They were in a difficult situation because of the divine soul of a calamity. They were almost suppressed by the other party as soon as they came up. At first, they thought about whether they could find a way to dive into the sea to fight, but the other party's strength was too tyrannical, and his fighting style was even more strange. Not to mention that they had no power to fight back, even parrying was very difficult. How could they deliberately change the battlefield? But seeing that the other party was so kind to give them such a good opportunity, how could they not make good use of it? At the same time, they dived into the sea. With a flash of light, they disappeared in the sky. They had the talent of water escape and could completely hide their existence in the water. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.